and who clearly did not have to worry about whether or not they were going to get their fair share. But I'm definitely going to fight for people who get the short end of the stick in this society only because they don't have representation. That's who I am.
Check out the Earl Ingram Show every day from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Only on WAUK 540 AM, 101 FM, The Shaw.
A progressive voice from Manitowoc to Janesville. WAUK 540 AM. Always streaming at WAUK-radio.
As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry is an independent product and has a joint sales agreement with Civic Media. Enjoy.
Is there anyone who is not happy about this or is pro bottle, anti can?
If you're hearing one thing from this whole thing, let it be that you should not drink your beer out of the package that it comes with. The opening in each of these vessels, right? A cup versus a bottle versus a can. Those two are very small. Aroma is a huge part of flavor. And if you really want to experience the beer, sometimes, maybe you don't. So maybe those beers you can drink out of a can or a bottle.
My mind just went to, it's a lot easier to shotgun a beer than snorkel a bottle.
That is a great point. That's a great
Just
point.
saying.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin!
Hello, Wisconsin. Happy Friday, February 10th. We are in for a great, fun Friday show. I am so excited, and specifically because you don't know, Jane, what snorkeling a beer is, right?
I had never heard that term before in my entire life.
And so snorkeling a beer is when you put a straw. So in the same way, the physics of shotgunning a beer,
Okay.
you have to open the bottom with a key so that the air helps push down the air pushes down the liquid.
Okay.
As you're trying to, as quickly as possible, drink the beer. So with a bottle, since obviously you're not going to smash the bottle because that sounds dangerous.
That does sound dangerous.
You put a straw in there, and then especially a bendy straw. So then the straw still puts in the air to the bottom of the bottle and helps push it down, thus snorkeling the beer through a bottle.
You actually sent me a diagram of what it is.
I did.
And then my whole brain started going towards Egyptian hieroglyphics, because someday that diagram will be found by other people and they'll think that it was something really useful. Like it was a medical practice or something that people engaged in 2023.
Oh, very funny. I'm gonna get you maybe at our next maybe not the holiday party, that feels too far away, but at some point I'm gonna get you to snorkel a beer with me, Jane.
All right.
So coming up today at 11:30 this hour, we are so excited to have former lieutenant governor, former senator candidate Mandela Barnes is going to be in the studio to talk about his PAC that he just launched this week called the Long Run, which, he is a runner, so it makes a lot of sense why he would name that. But I'm really excited because I think sometimes there's conversations around PACs that we don't always understand, as far as, because for him, notably in his campaign, he didn't take any money from corporate PACs. And so trying to talk to him about what is the difference between how they raise money, how does this differ from dark money and I guess light money and how that all works. So he's going to be here at 11:30. So I'm so excited about that. And then at the top of the noon hour, Mark Sommerhauser from Wisconsin Policy Forum is going to be here to talk about his new report about the conflicting mortality trends that we are seeing, both Wisconsin and nationally, that older people are actually living longer because there is more treatment and even prevention to some of the diseases and cancers that before kind of dominated and brought down mortality rates. But unfortunately, on the flip side, people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s are actually, the mortality rates there are increasing. And so talking about those trends, what the ramifications of those trends actually mean. So I'm looking forward to that. And then last night, the timeline of Brett Favre and everything that has been happening there is been outlined by J.R. Radcliffe with the help of a colleague, I think also from Mississippi Today, the reporting that she did, trying to talk about where we're at, because Brett Favre just filed a defamation suit against Pat McAfee, Michael Shannon. There's one more person in that, as far as, because he hasn't actually been criminally charged yet.
True.
And so JR is going to join to kind of break down the actual timeline, because there's a lot there.
It's complicated.
And like, I started reading it and I just tweeted it. I mean, I didn't tweet it. I just like texted him last night and I said, do you just want to come on and explain this so I don't have to try to understand all of this? And so that's going to be at 12:30. So we have a fun first 2 hours of the show. But to kick off, because we are 2 days before the we are 2 days before the Super Bowl, I thought we could have a little bit of a conversation about the stranglehold that the NFL has on us. And so this Sunday, it is going to be the most watched show annually. Over 100 million people are likely to watch the Super Bowl. I will be one of them. Jane, will you be one of them?
It'll be on. It'll
So
be on.
here's a question, and this is in the face of, we know in so many ways that the NFL is problematic, right? It is problematic in the way that how dangerous it is for players. It's problematic in sometimes the ways that players can do very violent things to their girlfriends and wives, or even to others, and what seems like they just get a slap on the wrist. There's just a lot there, and yet so many of us, myself included, continue to watch, continue to tune in. And it just kind of brings the question of why.
Why are we so married to this?
Why are we so married to this? And because I think that obviously there's a lot of people who just don't think about some of the things I just listed off, right? They think they're just about the football. They're super excited about it. But I think there's a lot of people who can hold both to be true, that they really enjoy football, they enjoy the NFL, and they can acknowledge some of the criticisms, and like the very rightful criticisms that the NFL has. And so, and it's such a unique thing to America, because this is not a sport that, unlike baseball, unlike the NBA, has gained, the same kind of level of fandom abroad. Like, it still is so uniquely American, and it's the most American sport, and it's tied, like they've done the NFL has done such a good job of tying it with the military, and so it seems patriotic, and like so much of it goes hand in hand. And so it's just this question as far as, where do you stand when it comes to the NFL? Is it something that you kind of just hold your nose because you know how much you enjoy it? Is it something that you don't even think, like some of the problems with it, you don't even think about? And I bring this up because yesterday, going into Super Bowl weekend, 10 former professional football players filed a suit against the NFL, alleging the league intentionally, arbitrarily denied benefits, and misrepresented medical information to keep costs down. And so disability plans, and like kind of some of the background with this is that disability plans for former players are relatively generous. So they range from $65,000 to $256,000 annually. But the players in the suit are arguing that the issue is not the level of benefits, but the difficulty in having medical claims approved. Particularly the difficulty in establishing a direct causal link between long-term repetitive damage, including brain injuries. So you're thinking about CTE, which may not manifest immediately. And so when I read this morning about this new case, it made me think of that the burn pits, and what for veterans who have all of this long-lasting health issues, when they were veterans and they were exposed to these burn pits overseas and the enormous battle that they have with the VA of trying to get to prove the link between those two things with their health outcomes. And it sounds like from this suit, there are players who are having a similar type of battle with the burden of proof for them to say that their symptoms from head injuries and other injuries are because of their time playing. And so and this is also the hit. I mean, the otherwise 1 in a million shot of the Damar Hamlin hit, but there is a lot there, and yet this will still be the number one watched show because it is a show for the entire year this Sunday. And so my question is, why? Like, what is it for you that the hooks? What is it about the NFL? Is it the appointment viewing, as we talked about last week?
Right.
And it's unlike having to keep track of when the baseball games are and when the basketball games are because there's so many more games. Is it because of the fact that you always know when it's on? Is it the storytelling because of the repeat characters? Is it nostalgia? Is it just because of who you grew up cheering for? The Badgers, you grew up cheering for the Packers, and the relationships that come with that. Like, I know for me, when I was living all over the country, and my brothers always lived all over the country, sometimes all over the world, our family bond on Sundays was to text in our text thread, talk about the game, And so, like, what is it about this game that we can't let it go? And Jane, I feel like you're not the target audience to have this conversation because you kind of take it or leave it.
I do. I really don't. I'm just not invested in it. I'm not.
But I think the thing for someone like you and I, and especially in your career, you kind of had to be because you needed to be able to talk about it.
Yes. In the early days,
For
when
sure.
I actually had to watch the game, and it was much harder to. Now you can get recaps instantaneously, and so but I always faked my way through it pretty well. Oh, what a good play! Ooh,
But absolutely. But it's funny because I just feel like now, certainly that's part of it for me, is being able to show up here on Mondays and be able to talk about it and hold my own in conversations. But I'd be lying if I said I don't really get into it while still knowing everything else. And so does the NFL still have a hold on you, and why? And if not, why do you think it does for other people? You can give us a text at 844-967-2789. You can also give us a call at the exact same number, 844-967-2789. What is it about the NFL that it has a hold on America? This is As Goes Wisconsin. We'll be right back. Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry. We got Jane Matnair on the board, and we are talking about the hold that the NFL, for better or for worse, depending on your opinion, I imagine, the hold that the NFL has on America. Because I bring this up, obviously, I first read a great article about this, that it's literally called the NFL's Stranglehold on America, why we can't turn off the NFL. This came out on Vox back in January, very early January, right after Damar Hamlin's hit, and the criticism of what the NFL is now denying, but the reporters stood by their reporting of it in the first hour, basically, of that hit and Damar Hamlin's heart stopping. The NFL wanted to finish the game. And there was a lot of criticism there of cancel the game. And in reality, if you think about it, probably, thank God he's out and he's on the mend. But had he actually died that night, my money is on the fact that the NFL still would have had games next weekend. And it is a dangerous sport. It's a danger to the athletes themselves. It's not without its domestic violence and other types of violence crimes of their players and how that gets dealt with in the league. And yet it's still the most popular sport in America, and only in America. It's not something that is, not with lack of trying, but it's something that is uniquely popular here, even though there is slippage happening as far as it's tumbled by like 18% as far as youth of how many kids right now are signing up to play football compared to baseball and basketball rates kind of holding steady, and soccer actually really starting to gain popularity. But it just, because I know that I'm guilty of this, and it's part of the reason I bring it up as far as how other people feel when it comes to justifying how much they still enjoy and tune in every week to watch not only their team, but other teams. Is it and for me, I think it's about the nostalgia and the family relations, but I also think there's just a cultural, this is what we do. I know when I didn't live in Wisconsin, it was a little easier I'd watch the game, but I didn't need to watch the game. And I remember the realization of when I was really going to move back to Wisconsin and move to Milwaukee. I had been in LA for the season opener in 2020 because I was packing up all my stuff and getting ready to move. And so I watched that game there. And while I was watching it, I realized, I will never again have to find the Packer bar in whatever city I'm living in, because every bar will be a Packer bar.
You got that right.
And the expectation of what are you doing for the game? And even more so, the expectation of what are you doing for the Super Bowl, which is where we're at right now, of Super Bowl plans and parties and prop bets and bets on, and it's also the expectation that's been built around the commercials and Rihanna's halftime show. And so they've made it so there is more for everyone, even if you don't care about the game, at least for the Super Bowl. But I just find it really interesting as far as this question of holding both things to be true. And yet, for the most part, the popularity still very much being there.
Oh, yeah. We have a text came in from the 608. NFL is a once a week, mostly on a weekend. And there are plenty of ways people can get involved, either through your team or national interest through fantasy football and gambling. And that is despite them treating players like garbage in a violent game. I know I will be watching.
Will be?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll be watching.
And, in some of the stuff with the players, do you claim that there are, do you fall on the side that you have a choice, right? It's not, no one is holding a gun to your head that you have to play football.
True.
And that if you grow up playing football, you inherently know some of the risks, some of the like what the sport, how dangerous the sport can be. But really what that brought this up was the fact that there was this lawsuit yesterday filed because it sounds like, at least the claim is, the NFL is dragging its feet when it comes to disability claims from past athletes, and not dissimilar to, I mean, veterans for sure, but I think for a lot of people when dealing with insurance claims, the burden of proof of this happened because of I played your game.
Yep.
Or I went to your war. And instead of taking care of your own, because you also know it's inherently dangerous, whether that's what we're talking about, football or Afghanistan or Iraq. And I know that those two it's a stretch to compare those two, but in the way that potentially they get treated afterwards, unless you're Tom Brady or some of these big stars that go on to get huge media deals to be commentators and stuff. If you weren't one of the stars, how you kind of are thrown away afterwards, I don't know. I bring this up because I know that I'm part of it. And so that I think lays the problem, not the problem, but the conundrum of those of us who understand it and yet still want to partake and want to be part of the culture. So, all right. Well, when we come back, Mr. Mandela Barnes is here. I can see the back of his head right now. He's in the green room. He's in the studio. I'm so excited to talk to him about his new PAC that he just launched this week, The Long Run. If you have any questions for him, feel free to text them in 844-967-2789. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM, Wisconsin's home for rational talk radio.
CBS News brief. Federal agents are at the Indiana home of former Vice President Mike Pence. One report says it's a consensual search as part of the documents investigation. CBS News legal contributor Rebecca Royfee on the subpoena issued yesterday to Pence by the Justice Department in its Donald Trump investigation.
The main thing that they would need from Pence himself is understanding of the former president's state of mind.
The earthquake death toll in Turkey and Syria tops 22,000. CBS's Chris Livesay.
Rescuers are drilling away at these piles of rubble inside of what used to be a 6-story residential building, furiously trying to save someone who might be alive beneath the rubble.
Ed Kelsey is excited about Sunday's Super Bowl. He has a son on each of the teams.
Well, I started dreaming about that when Travis was drafted in 2013. That's always, boy, would that be awesome.
Travis is on the Chiefs, Jason on the Eagles. CBS News Brief. I'm Steve Kathan.
A progressive voice for rural Wisconsin. WAUK 540 AM. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
For Civic Media News, I'm Terry Bell. Here's what you need to know. Students at the University of Wisconsin in Madison who qualify for Pell Grants will have the cost of rooms, meals, and other fees covered. Chancellor Jennifer Mnuchin made the announcement at yesterday's Board of Regents meeting. The Pell Pathway program is only available to students from Wisconsin. No state money will be used. Democrats are still pushing to replace Elections Commissioner Bob Spindell. All 11 Democrats in the state Senate sent a letter to Majority Leader Devin LeMahieu last week. They object to Spindell's comments after the November election, praising lower voter turnout in minority districts in Milwaukee. In sports, the Bucks beat the Lakers last night 115-106. Earlier yesterday, the Bucks got former Marquette star Jay Crowder in a 4-team trade. Milwaukee sent point guard George Hill to Indianapolis. I'm Terry Bell, and this is Civic Media News.
Hey everybody, how we doing? I'm Charlie Barons, inviting you to join me Saturdays and/or Sundays at noon. It's a horse apiece, whatever you decide. We're doing the Cripes Cast, where we talk to people for and/or from the Midwest, and it's more fun than a six-pack of Jolly Good. Okay, the pride of Random Lake, that Jolly Good is. Anyway, it's on your Civic Media station and the Civic Media app. And do me a favor, tell your folks I says hi. Okay, real good.
The bakers of Country Hearth and Village Hearth breads are proud to support local education with Loaves for Learning, the program that makes it easy to earn money for your school. Enjoy Country Hearth and Village Hearth all-natural breads, buns, bagels, and more. Then save the UPC from the package for your school to collect and redeem. Each is worth 5 cents and can be used for books, computers, sports, music, whatever your school needs. Up to $10,000 a year. Learn more at loavesforlearning.com. Country Hearth and Village Hearth breads, baking our best for you.
Knucklehead CBD and Vapes is now online at knuckleheads.shop. Step into your favorite smoke shop without leaving your home. Find grinders, papers, Delta 8 and more, all from your computer or phone. With free shipping on all orders over $50, you'll be sure to find exactly what you like. You can also order for in-store pickup, so there's no wait. Knucklehead CBD and Vapes.
Visit Knuckleheads Milwaukee at 2949 North Oakland Avenue.
Order online today at knuckleheads.shop.
My Shiro always goes the extra mile, stretches every dollar, puts others first. But now it's your time, Mom. Get free tips to help boost your retirement savings now at aceyourretirement.org.
Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Jane Matnair on the board, and sitting in front of me, the one, the only, the former lieutenant governor, former U.S. Senate candidate, Mandela Barnes. How are you doing, my friend?
I am doing fantastic. It is really good to be joining you here live in person.
I know. Last time you joined, I think, from the bus.
I was on the bus.
And it was Halloween.
It was, wow.
And I was in a costume.
Wow. Well, that helps you remember.
It does help me remember. I'm sure that was one of so many costumes and that you were interviewed by.
I'm upset that I didn't get to dress up this year for Halloween. One of my biggest regrets from the last year.
Were you told that you couldn't?
No, I just didn't have the time. I literally just didn't have the time or the energy to put thought into what a good costume should have been.
What's your favorite costume that you've ever had?
I've had a couple. I can't think of my favorite one. Some other people have decided what their favorite costume of me was.
Are you going to tell us?
It was. I was a certain figure.
Were you Barack Obama?
No, Jesus, no. No. I was
interpreter.
No, I was a public figure that was not myself. But different story for a different day.
Okay. So, do you feel rested?
I do feel rested.
Good.
I do. I still don't think I'm fully rested.
Yeah.
I tell you, like the last year and a half was the longest year and a half of my life, like the most involved year and a half of my life, just nonstop, from the moment I woke up until I went to sleep. It was, hyperdrive every step of the way, literally all gas, no brakes for like 18 months.
Yeah.
So to have, spent the last couple months, is like 3 months now since the election, had a lot of time to rest, reflect, but most importantly, recharge. Now we're back in it. Now we're getting right to it, not taking any real amount of time off.
No, I know. And so I think I do want to switch quickly to the PAC, but just one more question. Have you been able to wrap your head around how big of a deal your campaign was?
So, I don't necessarily know if that's for me to decide, right? Like, I know how much it meant to me.
Yeah.
I know how much it meant, to the people I was around, the people who showed up to vote for the very first time, the people who aren't even old enough to vote. I just did a Read Your Heart Out event earlier today in Madison, and it was, we had like second grade students, kindergarten students, and like if a kindergartner or, second grade student comes up and like calls you by name, it's like a wild feeling.
Yeah.
And it's like, why do you know who I am? It's like, I'm happy that they do, but it is just like one of those things where it's like, it just puts so much into perspective. So even if I did want to get more rest, probably just literally couldn't, because, you got these young kids, 7, 8-year-olds, 9, 10-year-olds, and they know what's going on. And if they know what's going on, I mean, they're too young to vote. They're too young to step up, run for office themselves. So knowing that all the work that we're doing is for the next generation, it's just like, I don't have the luxury to stop. And, none of us really have the luxury to stop. Some people choose to, some people just decide that, if a race doesn't go their way, then they just go home. They don't stick around, whatever. That's not for me to judge. You do your own thing. You know what you can deal with, what you can handle. That's not for me to decide. But personally, it's just, it's a little too much to give up, knowing the strides that we made, knowing where we came from to where we ended up to how close we had gotten, the closest U.S. Senate race in 100 years. And if I were to give up, I feel that it would be a signal to those young folks, to those kids who I talked to today, that, it's just not worth it. Or to say that, you don't win, then you just stop. And I grew up playing sports, and that's just not the reality. That's not the deal. You got to keep going, keep pressing forward.
Absolutely. So because we only have you for this segment, I want to move quickly to the big announcement this week.
Yeah.
The long run. Shout out to Fear.
Yeah.
And all our friends over at Fear, and running. I like the name. So tell everyone what. So I guess before we get into what the PAC is and what the mission is, was this an idea before? Was this always kind of a backup plan, or is this something that only has developed since the election?
Yeah. So the Long Run PAC, we just launched this past Tuesday. It's an initiative to help support candidates who are, in tough races, candidates who don't get the attention that they deserve, younger candidates, candidates of color, women, LGBTQ, working class candidates, you name it. The list goes on. It's not a fixed list of candidates, but it is those non-traditional candidates, the people who might have a little bit of trouble. And I know with my race, it was just like a long run, and it is grueling, it is taxing, it is tiring, and you don't always get the outcome that you're looking for in a race. And the race isn't about what happens on race day. It's about the preparation that goes into it. It's about the training. It's about the people who believed in you from the very start. And I looked at, us not getting the outcome that we wanted with the election, but it wasn't about that cycle on its own. It was about the long run. And so, no, it wasn't a backup plan at all. It was something that, after a while, after figuring out, how can we keep the momentum going? How can we keep the energy going? How can we keep the energy up? You can't just sit down, or else, you stop running, you'll end up cramping up. And so we got to
just keep on with the metaphor.
you just got to keep it going. And that's what it was. That's what it was about. And we had the idea, and so might as well just, if it's not me, then let's make sure that we can help other people who are in similar situations, similar races, similar contexts.
So because I feel like the word PAC is kind of this big, dubious, what does that actually mean? Because notably, you did not take any corporate PAC money. So how does the Long Run as a PAC differ from corporate PACs for people who are unfamiliar with how this all works?
Yeah. So, corporate PACs are, they come from profits generated by corporations. Look, and that's fine, right? Like some people take corporate PAC money. I just don't.
Yeah.
This PAC, the Long Run, is going to be funded like our campaign was. Grassroots donors, people stepping up, chipping in $5, $10 at a time. That's how we were able to get the support. We broke fundraising records in the state, raised more than any Democrat had raised in the entire state of Wisconsin, in the history of this state. And it was through grassroots donors that made that possible. The people who stepped up, who responded to those text messages when we asked for $3.
Those text messages.
Those text messages. I got a news flash for those text messages coming back. But seriously, it was the people who stepped up and decided, I'll donate $1, I'll donate $3, because they wanted things to fundamentally change. These are folks who who are frustrated and don't often feel like their voice matters, or don't feel like they have the same hand to play in politics as corporate donors. or corporate PACs. And the way that they can get involved is by sparing $1, sparing $3, sparing $5 to help the cause, because we're all in this together. And so that's the difference between the long run PAC and corporate PAC.
So then next question is, what's the difference between the long run PAC and something like Run for Something?
Yeah.
Which is another similar group as far as training candidates, progressive women, people of color. And is there overlap there?
So Run for Something is an organization.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they have a PAC. Pretty sure they do. But they're an organization, right? They have a structure. They have their directors, they have their communications directors, they have their state directors, they have people who are specifically going out, doing the recruiting, doing the day-to-day work. The PAC is to help support candidates. So there are in that regard, there are certainly similarities, but that's just the difference between an organization and a political action committee. We're not going to be able to do the work that a Run for Something does. Their mission is just is different than ours. It's a great mission, by the way, something I support. But
so it's something that could potentially, you guys could work together on behalf of a similar candidate.
Oh,
where you guys are helping to support them, and they're helping to train them.
There would certainly be opportunities for overlap. Certainly opportunities for overlap.
So I think, because I feel like we are back in, we being Wisconsin, with the upcoming primary for the Wisconsin Supreme Court, we're back into this question of electability. And so as far as, because I know that is a core theme to how you want to support questionable electable candidates, as far as how will they be able to do, and these kind of like insinuations of different non-traditional candidates of who we're used to seeing. And so like coming away from your campaign, going into this PAC, how does that word land with you?
Yeah. I mean, we threw away the whole idea of electability, because that was an unfair question that we got a lot, right? Yeah. And people question, they was like, is he ready for it? It's like, I'm already lieutenant governor. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I've been in office for a couple of years now. But when it comes to that question, it's just like when people see or experience something that they aren't used to, they get a little hesitant. This is something that you aren't expecting. But, like we said in the announcement, it's the candidates who are different that ultimately have an opportunity to make the biggest difference. We had that whole electability thing all from the primary all the way through to general, like the question, like the commercial that said, around where it just ended Mandela Barnes, different, right? So you got commercials like that. And after that first debate, that's what I used, or during the first debate at the wrap up, I used that when they asked if we wanted to clear up anything from negative advertising. I said, I actually want to lean into the whole different part because we should. As society grows more diverse, as people's experiences change, as life just gets different and evolves, I think that we should, as a society, be more open, more welcoming, and embracing of those differences. Right? This isn't, in spite of somebody's life. This isn't about getting rid of one thing. This is about adding in another layer. And that's what this country has been about, or it's what the country should be about. Adding new layers as time goes on. If we get ourselves stuck in one little box, if we get ourselves stuck in one place, if we never change, if we never adapt, then we'll fall. It's what happened in Rome. It's like you just remain stagnant, and it's like it doesn't bode well for any of us, economically, socially, or politically.
Absolutely. We're talking to former Lieutenant Governor and former U.S. Senate candidate Mandela Barnes about his new PAC, The Long Run. And so what is step one? I mean, I guess step one was announcing.
Step one was the announcement.
What is step two? Like, what is you? There's no candidates that have been announced yet.
No candidates have been announced yet. So, we're going around building the support for the PAC to make sure we have the resources to support candidates. So if you want to help out, go to longrunpac.com. You can learn more about the PAC. And if you feel so inclined, please support the PAC so that we can get out there and start helping candidates. The sooner, the better. And so that's the next step for us. Then we'll be identifying candidates. If you are running, you can go to the website. You can, you can submit your information right on the website.
And so this is going to be for national campaign, not national campaigns, but as far as, is this only for Wisconsin candidates?
No,
Yeah,
it's
that's what I
actually
thought.
candidates across the country. It is a federal PAC, but Wisconsin is home.
Yeah.
But we are looking to support candidates all across the country. We want to make the biggest impact possible.
And so then final question as far as leaving the door open, because I think that's what you said in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel article for the long pack this launching this week, that future runs, not yes, not no, but do you feel like, not that you would ever be able to necessarily know the comparison, but I feel like, is running such a high profile campaign, is it kind of like having a baby where you just forget and you're like, I could do that again?
So, you go through it, in the end, you accept the result, and you kind of, you just replay in your mind, the things you think that could have gone differently. And it's tough too, when it's such a razor thin margin where it's like, all right, well, maybe if I would have woken up at, 6 a.m. instead of 6:15, right? Like, for 1 week, right? Would that have made the difference?
Yeah.
Maybe if I did this, or maybe if I did that. But I'm not closing the door, right? Like, and that's what the whole idea of long run is all about, right? Like, these are tough, tough races to deal with. Taking a loss is not easy. And I know some people who just get up right away and decide they want to run again. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not there. But it's all timing.
It's all timing. All right. Well, I'm very excited to watch how the long run goes. I'm excited to support it. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Mandela.
Hey, I appreciate that.
Your favorite show live on air? It's easy to find what you enjoy wherever you listen to podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. And we're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app.
Catch Up North News Radio with Pat Kreitlow at its brand new time, 6 to 8 a.m. weekdays.
The city of Shanghai started administering an inhalable COVID-19 vaccine. I hear a lot.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry. We just had Mandela Barnes here. It was so fun to talk to him.
It was.
And one of the comments, I'll have to text this to him because he's already out the door, but we got this on the live stream, which you can watch if you want to see the actual video of Jane and I on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter at As Goes Wisconsin.
Maybe you don't watch the first half hour from today. We just had some things going on in the background that were
It is
challenging.
It was, yeah. We had some when something's talking in your ear and you're still trying to talk,
And you're not sure where it's coming
you're
from.
not sure what they're saying.
It's like having an alien in your ear. Anyway.
Anyway, Joseph McClear on the Facebook live stream said, to Mandela, I was happy to support you and vote for you this past fall, and I was lucky enough to meet and chat with you in Appleton last year. I know you have a bright future ahead of you, and all of Wisconsin will benefit from it. You will have lots of support going forward. Thank you for all that you do. So
Nice.
I will have to text that to him, but thank
Yeah.
you for the comment, Joseph. And as always, we would love to hear from you. So if you ever want to text or call with your thoughts on the topic at hand, 844-967-2789. That is 844-96-PARTY. And it's the time of the week that we're going to quiz ourselves on the headlines from this week.
Okay.
And so I'm a little nervous. I feel like maybe, like we said yesterday, this week was kind of dominated by Biden. So let's see what some of the ancillary stories, and I feel bad saying that because some of these stories were really big stories.
I know.
But we didn't talk about them.
Sometimes they get missed.
It's only, even though 3 hours is a long time, sometimes it's not enough. All right. Question number 1. After 33 years, which beverage giant relinquished its executive alcohol advertising rights to the Super Bowl broadcast? Well, without even reading them, I can imagine which one it is, but let's read the options.
All right.
A, Molson Coors, B, Heineken, C, Anheuser-Busch, D, Remy Martin.
I have no idea.
It has to be Anheuser-Busch because think of how many Bud commercials you've seen over the years, the Clydesdales and everything. I mean, I didn't read that headline, but I just have imagined
that's who.
that has to be who it is.
Okay.
All right. LeBron James became the NBA's all-time leading scorer this week, breaking whose record? We know this one. Do you not know this one? We talked about it.
I know. There's a
Sports ball.
There's a lot of things in my brain. Once I hear the name, I will know it.
It is former Buck Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Oh, of course.
Yes. The other options were Karl Malone, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan.
No.
But it is Kareem. And one thing we should say about that record is that when Kareem was playing, there wasn't a three-point line.
Wow.
And so he only in his 38,000, I think it's 38,387 was the goal. He only had one three-pointer. And I think something like 6,000 of LeBron's points in that goal were three-pointers.
Wow.
It's still an incredible feat. I'm not trying to take anything away from LeBron, but just remember that all of Kareem's were just 2 points.
Yep.
So, all right. Alphabet shares plunged after Google's new AI chatbot flubbed facts in its public debut. What's the chatbot called? A, ErnieBot, B, Bard, C, Polymath, D, Sergey. I don't think. I remember seeing the headline for this because it's basically trying to be a competitor to ChatGPT. I'm going to say C. Do you have any idea?
No.
All right, I'm going to say C, Polymath.
I'm not even quite sure what the question is, but I will go with the last one.
All right. For who, we did talk about this. Who was the designated survivor during this week's State of the Union address? Labor Secretary Marty Walsh, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Attorney General Merrick Garland.
It was Marty.
It was Marty. Because they definitely cut to Janet at one point. I saw there was some young activist who was the guest of a Texan congresswoman, and she took pictures with Pete Buttigieg. So I was like, oh, he was there. And I think they also cut to Merrick Garland at one point. So
yeah.
And we also talked about it being Marty Walsh. So
That
we know
helps
that we know it to be true. All right, number 5. Which video game broke pre-release records this week despite calls to boycott it? A, The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. B, Diablo 4. C, Harry Potter, Hogwarts Legacy. D, Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Star Wars.
It's Harry Potter.
You knew that?
I knew that. I'm a millennial. I am not a like I am not a Harry Potter fanatic.
Okay.
My generation is. And so
I have
through
all the books.
osmosis, I get a lot of Harry Potter fandom updates as far as this stuff goes.
I have all the books.
Did you read all of them?
You bet.
I seen all of the movies. I didn't read the books as a kid. I probably should go back and read them.
That was one of our first dates, my husband and I.
Reading the books together?
No, we went to a movie. We went to
Really?
because I wanted to see if he would go to a movie like that with me. That was a test.
And he passed.
He did.
Did he like it?
He certainly faked it well if he didn't.
Did you like it?
I loved it.
Okay. I love the movies too. I thought they were really well done. All right, let's see how we did. We got 4 out of 5 correct.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty good. So we were right. Anheuser-Busch gave up its exclusive Super Bowl alcohol ad rights. So we will maybe see a variety of other alcohol ads on Sunday.
Okay.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the previous NBA all-time leading scorer. Google's AI chatbot is called Bard.
Fine.
You know, one of the things we didn't get to this week, because I didn't know how to make it fun, was Chat GPT, which that is on my to-do list. Because this doesn't cross over in your headlines at all when you're reading stuff for the show.
No.
For me, I feel like it's everywhere. I feel like every day I see some AI Chat GPT, whether it can be on TikTok, it's in the newsletters I read and stuff. But it's a big deal. And one of the things that's fun that they did this week was have ChatGPT write a State of the Union address, but in the voice of different characters.
Oh, fun.
So like Cleopatra. And I forgot who else was on there, but and because I can't do impressions very well. If I could do impressions, that would have been very fun to read, because it's for how quickly it spits it out, it's pretty impressive. And so anyways, moving on. The Labor Secretary, Marty Walsh, was the designated survivor, and Harry Potter Hogwarts Legacy broke pre-release records despite people wanting to boycott it. Okay. And this will be the end of our 11 o'clock hour. When we come back from Wisconsin Policy Forum, Mark Sommerhauser will be here. Stick with us. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
You know him as the nose tackle for the green and gold, 1993 to 1999, and again 2001 to 2003. 125 games, 292 tackles, 7 sacks, and a Super Bowl ring. But there's more to life than stats, and there's more to life than football. You're about to find out. Under the Helmet with the Gravedigger, featuring Packers legend Gilbert Brown and Earl Ingram. Monday mornings at 8 on the Shaw and on the Civic Media app. Monday morning at 8, don't miss Under the Helmet with the Gravedigger, featuring legendary Gilbert Brown and Earl Ingram. Football, life, and fun.
Earl, you've been driving a Yugo. They just gave you a brand new Ferrari with turbo boost. So enjoy it, brother.
Under the Helmet with the Gravedigger, Gilbert Brown and Earl Ingram. Monday morning at 8 on the Shaw, 540 AM and 101.1 FM.
You are listening to WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W266 DR Waukesha, always streaming on the Civic Media app.
This is CBS News on the Hour, your home for original reporting.
I'm Steve Kathan. Federal agents are searching the Indiana home of former Vice President Mike Pence. Reports say it was arranged as part of the FBI's classified documents investigation. Pence's lawyers say they found about a dozen there last month. It comes a day after Pence was subpoenaed as part of the Justice Department's Trump investigation. CBS News legal contributor Rebecca Royfeed.
It really does show that this is pretty far along. The special counsel can put together a lot of facts using staff and aides, and they would only subpoena Mike Pence at the end of their investigation.
The earthquake death toll in Turkey and Syria now tops 22,000. But amid all the destruction and misery, CBS's Chris Livesay reports there have been joyous rescues.
Time is running out. but not for 17-year-old Adnan Muhammad Korkut. An overjoyed mother, brother, and his rescuer. I have a son just like you, she says. I haven't slept for 4 days trying to get you out. Thank God you arrived, says the survivor. Such scenes are increasingly rare. But that's not stopping Bob George and his sniffer dog, Shadow, from USAID. There could still be survivors here.
We hope so, and that's why we're going to keep trying.
U.S. officials now say the Chinese spy balloon that was shot down last weekend apparently was trying to monitor nuclear command and control communications. CBS's Nancy Cordes.
Some of the balloon's scaffolding and equipment has now been recovered, but heavy seas are hampering the recovery of the rest. And so now the Navy is taking steps to weigh that debris down, to keep it from drifting away until they can scoop it up.
China today called a House resolution condemning Beijing political manipulation and hype. And in the Mideast today, new violence.
A Palestinian rammed his car into a crowded bus stop here in Jerusalem, creating a scene of panic. Police shot and killed the assailant, who was identified as an Arab resident of East Jerusalem. It's the latest in a spiral of violence in Israel's capital, including a deadly
Hello, sir.
attack at a synagogue.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
CBS News, Jerusalem.
Yeah, I'm okay. Can you hear me okay?
Well, yeah, you sound great, actually.
Excellent.
So perfect. So I figure, I mean, we're pretty straightforward as far as I'll do a brief summary of what the report said, but then kind of start with the older population, what those trends said, the younger population, ramifications. I know you said there's not a lot of solutions, but I think even talking about the fact that we don't have a lot of solutions yet is worth noting. But yeah, otherwise, pretty straightforward.
Okay, that sounds great.
Awesome.
Bringing some sanity to the airwaves. The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane McNair. Here's what you need to know. Wisconsin's veterans could be getting more support if Governor Evers' 2023-25 budget is approved. The initiatives include millions in tax relief for veterans and surviving spouses, and expands property tax credits to vets who rent their homes. It will also provide funding for mental health and educational needs. The governor's budget will be released to the GOP-controlled legislature February 15th. The Finance Committee then revises it before the budget returns to the Senate and Assembly for their approval. 13 cheese and dairy manufacturers from central Wisconsin are competing against dairy makers from 35 states at the 2023 U.S. Championship Cheese Contest, February 21st through the 23rd in Green Bay. The nationally renowned competition gives dairy companies and customers and vie for the coveted title of champion. I'm Jane McNair. This is Civic Media News.
Civic Media promised you something big to celebrate our new and still growing network of radio stations. When we announced the one-day $1 million advertising giveaway for Wisconsin businesses, you responded.
Just wanted to echo your sentiments about the advertising. That's really a cool deal and really remarkable.
$1 million of free advertising. Now, if you missed this chance to work with our team, go to civicmedia.us and click on the sponsorship tab. One of our local sales pros will get right back to you. civicmedia.us and sponsorship.
Governor Tony Evers, Tim Michaels said you had gone, quote, full woke. Dr. Jill Underly said that somebody who says that has no idea what we're doing in schools to make sure kids feel safe.
We want to make sure all kids feel supported. Tim Michaels, we don't teach CRT in our schools. You got to come to the present century here, Tim, and be cognizant of what actually goes in the schools. My guess is you've never been in a public school in Wisconsin.
Up North News Radio with Pat Krylo airs at its new time from 6 to 8 a.m. weekdays across Civic Media.
We have to really understand how critically important a time this is. Time for talk is over. The time for action is now. Because my voice has always been and will continue to be for people who don't have a voice.
Tune in to the Earl Ingram Show every Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Only on WAUK 540 AM, 101.1 FM, The Shaw.
The Shaw 101 FM, your fix for progressive talk. From Muskego to Pewaukee, always streaming at WAUK.
As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry is an independent product and has a joint sales agreement with Civic Media. Enjoy.
Is there anyone who is not happy about this or is pro bottle, anti can?
If you're hearing one thing from this whole thing, let it be that you should not drink your beer out of the package that it comes in. The opening in each of these vessels, right? A cup versus a bottle versus a can. Those two are very small. Aroma is a huge part of flavor. And if you really want to experience the beer, sometimes, maybe you don't. So maybe those beers you can drink out of a can or a bottle.
My mind just went to, it's a lot easier to shotgun a beer than snorkel a bottle.
That is a great point. That's a great
Just
point.
saying.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin. Welcome to the noon hour. Thank you for joining us on your lunch hour, no matter where you're joining us, on the radio, the stream, the app, or maybe even a podcast later. Thank you for spending part of your Friday with us. Well, we want to jump right into our next topic to kick off the hour because this is a concerning, well, it's weird because it feels conflated as far as what this new report from Wisconsin Policy Forum found in a new report, that more young adult lives are being lost in Wisconsin, even as death rates go down for older adults. And so to talk a little bit more about this and explain these findings and the ramifications of them is Mark Sommerhauser. Welcome back to the show, Mark.
Hey, Kristen, thank you so much for having me.
So this feels, in some ways it feels like a good thing because you want to think when there's new developments in medical treatment and prevention for heart disease and cancer and some of the illnesses and diseases that cut people's lives short, but in their later years is getting better. But it's pretty concerning to think that people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s their lives are getting cut short. And so I guess to start off, before we get into the details, what was the interest in looking at this as a trend?
Yeah, so I guess I would just say to start, what you kind of laid out in your intro was very similar to the reaction we had, which was like, it's a little hard to know how to feel about this because there's a couple of pretty big trends happening here, and one of them's really encouraging and one of them's really concerning. So we kind of started this. We had a concept that we might want to do some research relating potentially to drug overdose deaths, but initially we weren't totally sure what that would look like. And as we often do in our research process, we were just kind of batting ideas back and forth. And we decided to kind of actually zoom out a little bit and look at what we call all-cause mortality, which is just, essentially all types of deaths for all types of causes lumped together. And when we kind of zoomed out and did that kind of 30,000 foot view, that's when we kind of were able to see in the data some of what became kind of the basis for this report, which is that, we're seeing, at the all-cause level, significantly lower rates of death for older adults in Wisconsin and nationally. But then unfortunately, when we look at younger adults and we're defining that, there's of course different ways you could define that. We're defining that in the report here as ages 25 to 44. We did see, significant increases in mortality. And I should just specify for your listeners here, we did look at the data kind of over a long-term period, so a 2-decade time period from 2001 to 2021. Obviously, COVID-19 has created some of its own trends here just within the last few years that people are going to be aware of. But we kind of wanted to get a big picture view for this report. So we were kind of looking over that 2-decade time frame.
And so let's start with the older population as far as the fact that despite, because I think conventional wisdom would have, at least to me, said COVID-19 disproportionately impacted older generations. And yet,
correct.
Even that is true, but not to offset the improvements we've made with the more typical heart disease, cancer. And so tell me more about how did that surprise you?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I knew we were making progress in some of these areas, but it's always like anything else. It's until you pull up the data and you look at the numbers that it starts to come into focus for you. If you look at all-cause mortality for folks in their 60s, 70s, 80s, both in Wisconsin and nationally, you see a very steady, downward trajectory in total all-cause mortality, starting in 01, going right up through 2019, and then unfortunately, COVID-19 comes along, and it does tick up quite significantly. But as you just laid out there, not by enough to offset all of the declines in mortality that we had seen essentially from 2001 to 2019. And we really found that there's three kind of main causes for this, and that is that when you look at three of the most common causes of death, particularly for older adults, that being heart disease, cancer, and cerebrovascular illness, which primarily is going to be strokes. There have just been, over the last 2 decades, tremendous progress, tremendous declines in mortality from those causes, anywhere from 24% decline for cancer to 45% decline in mortality for cerebrovascular diseases, primarily stroke.
That is
over the last 2 decades. So that's just staggering. I mean, it's incredible. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I'm just commenting on that. 45% is a huge number.
It's massive. It's massive. And again, these are three of the most common causes of death. I should say too that, we were just, for all of our data analysis here, we were relying on data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. They have a publicly accessible database called Wonder that is basically the master database nationally for all 50 states. It uses just data from death certificates that are filed in each of the 50 states. And it enables us to look at trends in mortality, here in Wisconsin and nationally, according to all sorts of demographic and other factors. So it's an incredibly useful tool for this kind of analysis.
We're talking to Mark. Oh, I was just going to reintroduce you. We're talking to Mark Sommerhauser, who's the communications director and policy researcher for Wisconsin Policy Forum, on his new report, More Young Adult Lives Lost in Wisconsin, Even as Death Rates Down for Older Adults. And so, is there anything more you want to add to the trend that we saw with older adults?
I think those are the key points. I mean, it's just the one other thing, I guess, to just kind of piggyback on what you were pointing out there about COVID. Obviously then we did see this uptick in 2020 and 21, which were, of course, the years when we were really seeing the very high levels of COVID mortality. But it just underscores that had we not had a once in a century global pandemic, these declines in mortality among older adults would have been that much greater, which is pretty remarkable. And obviously, we saw COVID mortality down quite a bit in 2022, hopefully down even further again in 2023. And it does hold out hope that maybe we can kind of get back on that trajectory we were on in 2019 of continuing to make progress in those areas.
But on the contrast, specifically even just starting with COVID, and when you looked at mortality rates for 20s, 30s, 40s, or specifically you guys were looking at 25 to 44, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we looked at all different levels, but where we really saw where we really did see the biggest change was kind of in that 25 to 44.
And of that mortality rates are actually going up. But one of the reasons, even though what was surprising, if I'm understanding this from the report correctly, what was surprising in the assumption that COVID would have increased mortality because we were told that it's so disproportionately was dangerous for older people. It was also really dangerous for young people. And that's one of a couple reasons that the mortality rates have gone up for young people, right?
Correct. Yeah. And the one thing that probably is important to understand there is that it doesn't take as much to move the needle in all-cause mortality among younger adults because very few of them die. And so, as opposed to older adults, there's much, much higher rates of mortality among older adults. So, you add in something like COVID, which you're totally correct, did much more, very disproportionately affect, in terms of mortality, very disproportionately affected older adults. But, older adults are suffering from much higher rates of mortality for a whole host of causes. So Whereas younger adults, there are a few, more frequent causes of death among younger adults, but just the baseline is so much lower for them that you introduce something like COVID, and it will, on a percentage basis, it will move the needle a little bit more, and that's kind of what we saw. That being said, and we'll obviously talk about this in a minute, but COVID definitely was very much a secondary factor, with the far bigger one being drug overdose deaths.
And so we'll get into a little bit deeper when we come back from the next commercial, but just to set up, what were the other factors that have led to increased mortality rates for younger folks?
Yeah, the main ones are drug overdose and COVID deaths. We did see also a slight uptick in the suicide death rate as well. So that's another contributing factor. But really, the vast majority of this increase really has come from drug overdose deaths. And in the last couple years, there was also a little bit of a contributing factor as well from homicide deaths. Of course, we have seen in Wisconsin and nationally, unfortunately, since about the summer of 2020, an uptick in homicide, an uptick in violent crime. That, of course, disproportionately is going to affect younger adults. Most frequently are the victims of homicide. So again, that was a much smaller contributor, but really the two main ones are the ones that we kind of highlight: overdose deaths and COVID.
All right, well, we'll get into that a little bit more as far as how how Wisconsin differs or is in step with trends nationally, and also what this means as a bigger picture and ramifications of these trends. But our guest this half hour is Mark Sommerhauser, who is a communications director and a policy researcher for Wisconsin Policy Forum. We'll be back in just a minute. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Yeah, back to work with your brains. I'm in the lab all alone, even the postdoc went home. Why won't this DNA clone? I'm in the lab to get data. We're up all night to write code. We're up all night till brains close. We're up all night to be smooth. We're up all night to get data. We're up all night for this poster. Oh, how I hate Illustrator. Why can I not move this figure? Hope no one scoops my next paper. We're up all night to get data. We're up all night to get data. We're up all night to get data. We're up all night to get data.
Hey everybody, how we doing? I'm Charlie Barons, inviting you to join me Saturdays and or Sundays at noon. It's a horse apiece, whatever you decide. We're doing the Cripes Cast, where we talk to people for and or from the Midwest, and it's more fun than a six-pack of Jolly Good. Okay, the pride of Random Lake, that Jolly Good is. Anyway, it's on your Civic Media station and the Civic Media app. And do me a favor, tell your folks I says hi. Okay, real good.
Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden. Remember when the internet was new? Back then, you had to leave your house to start a business. Companies used to pay programmers bags of cash to get online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page, or Squarespace, or Google My Business, or WordPress. But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path? Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way. Find us online at design.garden. Again, that's design.garden.
You've got questions about navigating the healthcare system? Kristen Lyerly helps us find answers and discusses other issues at the intersection of healthcare and politics. Hometown Health, Thursday mornings at 7:30 on Up North News Radio.
You are listening to your local Civic Media radio station on air. Thank you. Did you know we are always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app too? And if you miss a show or game, find it wherever you get your podcasts or on our website, civicmedia.us.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Sunny skies and calm this afternoon with highs around 29. Winds out of the northwest 10 to 15 miles an hour. Clear skies and quiet again tonight. Lows dip down to about 16. Ample sunshine expected tomorrow. High of 39. Temps a bit above average Sunday and Monday with highs in the low 40s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 27 degrees.
The Shaw 101 FM, Brookfield's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
Because you know I'm all about the data, more data. 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 Here, it's pretty clear.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin on the Civic Media Network. I am your host, Kristen Bry. Got Jane Matnair with the another great find of parody songs. And we are talking to Mark Sommerhauser, who is the communications director and a policy researcher for Wisconsin Policy Forum. And we're talking about his newest report, finding that more young adult lives are lost in Wisconsin, even as death rates are going down for older adults. And the previous segment, we talked about some of the reasons why. But I guess, how much is this, do we fall in line with national trends? Or how much are we either behind or ahead of national trends?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because that's always something that we're trying to be mindful of. There are a lot of trends that we can look at where you can say, oh, X is increasing or decreasing in Wisconsin. But then we kind of look at the national data and we go, okay, this is really just kind of a national trend. And Wisconsin is just sort of riding that larger wave that is playing out throughout the country. To some extent, that is what is happening here. I would say to a large extent it is. We are seeing, the broad strokes of this happening nationally on both sides in terms of mortality declining for older adults, increasing for younger adults. But it is also true that when we look at the trends among young adults, mortality has increased during the period we looked at, which again, was this 2-decade period from 2001 through 2021, 2021 being the most recent year for which we have data from the CDC. We do see a sharper increase here in Wisconsin in all-cause mortality among younger adults in that 25 to 44 age cohort. So that is, certainly a little bit of additional cause for concern. And in particular, in the area of the drug overdose fatalities, we see a much sharper increase in overdose fatalities among adults ages 25 to 44 in Wisconsin than nationally. Now, some of that, you always have to keep in mind your baseline. 2 decades ago, Wisconsin had a much lower overdose fatality rate for individuals in those age groups than the nation. So we, in a lot of ways, have more kind of regressed to the mean. We've kind of become more like the nation and gotten actually quite close now to the national overdose fatality rate among those age groups. So whereas 2 decades ago, we were doing much better than nationally in that area, now we've kind of just fallen in line pretty close to where the nation is at. And of course, as most of your listeners are probably familiar, over the last 2 decades is when we've really just seen the explosion of this opioid overdose crisis play out. And it's really, kind of morphed and evolved from initially being something that was rooted more in prescription medication, right? That people would take for pain, potentially develop addictions and start taking more of this medication and potentially overdose. Now, in the last few years, it's a totally different crisis, and it's become something that's really mostly about fentanyl, which is a synthetic opioid, a manufactured opioid that is incredibly potent, that is unfortunately now more and more often being laced into other drugs. So people will buy some sort of a drug, a street drug, or some sort of a prescription medication that they'll purchase. They'll think that they're buying one type of drug. Unbeknownst to them, it may be laced with fentanyl. And again, this is an incredibly potent drug, especially for people that have not ever consumed it. And it can result in overdoses. And that's unfortunately what we're seeing in increasing numbers nationally and here in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, that it feels like that so much comes back to that as far as what is happening, not only just in our metropolitan areas, but across the entire state, as far as fentanyl being such a big problem. And so I want to talk about solutions, even if there aren't any, or even solutions that at the forum you guys are interested in researching. But before we get to that, how much do these trends of older people living longer and younger people the mortality rates going up. Are they at numbers where it is exacerbating the already growing problem of an aging population and a dwindling working age population? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a reasonable question to. Yeah, no, I think that's a very reasonable question to ask. I mean, obviously we emphasize in the report, and you understand as well. We all get that. The biggest issue here is the human toll that's being taken.
Course.
But I don't think the economic toll can be. Yeah, but I don't think the economic toll can be overlooked either, because as you mentioned, our state is dealing with an aging population, which is, by the way, a regional issue. It's something that you see in most of the Midwestern states, and Wisconsin is no different in this respect. We're seeing an aging population, people in the baby boomer, especially age cohort, retiring out of the workforce. In a lot of professions, there are just not enough people of working age, especially prime working years, which, is exactly the age group essentially that we're talking about here, 25 to 44. That's, really prime working years in just about any profession. We need more people in that age cohort. And unfortunately, when you have this additional trend now of, primarily overdose deaths, killing more people in those age cohorts, it absolutely is having an impact. We looked at, for instance, within this cohort, just to put some more concrete numbers to it for your listeners, ages 25 to 44, when we compare 2001 to 2021, 1,100 more deaths, a little more than 1,100 more deaths among people ages 25 to 44 in Wisconsin in 2021 compared to 2001. So, and that's just for 1 year, right? So we've been seeing a steady increase year after year. And unfortunately, we, may see a number in this ballpark in 2022. We don't have that data yet. But, you see a pretty large number like that just for 1 year, and you stack that up year after year. And, certainly over a decade or more, it can absolutely have a really large impact, I think, statewide.
Absolutely.
Well,
unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get to solutions, but the forum did write a report called Road to Recovery specifically about Milwaukee County. I will put that in our show notes for today as maybe a glimmer of hope of some way. But Mark Sommerhauser, thank you so much for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thank you, Kristen. It's always good to be with you.
All right, great. We will be back in just a minute with J.R. Radcliffe to talk about the Brett Favre timeline. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
I'm all about the data, more data. I'm all about the data, more.
The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM, Waukesha's only news talk station.
CBS News Brief. As part of the classified documents investigation, FBI agents are searching former Vice President Pence's Indiana home. As part of the Justice Department's Trump probe, Pence has been subpoenaed.
I think we are moving toward a conclusion, and that doesn't necessarily mean that there will be an indictment. It just means that in terms of putting these puzzle pieces together, the special counsel is fairly close.
Legal analyst Rebecca Royfeet. The earthquake death toll in Turkey and Syria now tops 22,000. Dr. Julie Varghese is with an American relief group trying to get supplies to desperate survivors.
We have another shipment en route with critically needed chronic disease meds. So you think about people with diabetes, asthma, high blood pressure that are now out of their medications and need restock.
Kansas City quarterback Patrick Mahomes wins his second NFL MVP. He's a key figure in Sunday's Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl battle. CBS News Brief, I'm Steve Kathan.
The Shaw 101 FM, your fix for progressive talk. From Big Bend to Menominee Falls. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
For Civic Media News, I'm Terry Bell. Here's what you need to know. Governor Evers wants to increase spending for the Department of Veterans Affairs by $24 million. $9 million would go toward new programs for veterans. Almost $8 million would be used to hire new nurses or give current nurses at the state's veterans homes raises. The governor unveils his full budget proposal next week. Former Packers star quarterback Brett Favre is suing 2 sports commentators and Mississippi state auditor for defamation. The lawsuits accuse Pat McAfee, Shannon Sharp, and Shad White of lying about Favre in the media. Favre has long denied he knew he was part of a plan to divert welfare money to build new sports facilities at his alma mater. In sports, the Bucks beat the Lakers last night. Earlier yesterday, Milwaukee got former Marquette star Jay Crowder in a 4-team trade. Milwaukee sent point guard George Hill to Indianapolis. I'm Terry Bell, and this is Civic Media News.
You know him as the nose tackle for the Green and Gold, 1993 to 1999, and again 2001 to 2003. 125 games, 292 tackles, 7 sacks, and a Super Bowl ring. But there's more to life than stats, and there's more to life than football. You're about to find out. Under the Helmet with the Gravedigger, featuring Packers legend Gilbert Brown and Earl Ingram. Monday mornings at 8 on the Shaw and on the Civic Media app.
This is Pat Greitlow from Up North News Radio. On the air, online, or on demand, make it a point to catch the first word on Wisconsin news, sports, and more weekday mornings from 6 to 8 all across the stations of the Civic Media Radio Network.
Wait a minute. How about this? Listen to me, you lantern-jawed cretin, you horned-eyed homunculus. You are going to do what's right for the people of Wisconsin. You're putting cancer water in our water, destroying the greatest university system in the country, and public education. Knock it off. That is unlikely to be said. That's what I'd say.
Tune in to Matt Flynn Direct, Monday through Friday, 3 to 4 p.m.
If I could be you,
and you could be me, for just 1 hour,
if you could find a way
to get inside each other's mind,
walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
You're a douche, you're a douche, you're a big busy douche. Everything you said was a lie. You're a douche, you're a douche, you're a big busy douche. But you're still a really, really handsome guy.
Thank you.
You're a douche, you're a douche, you're a big busy douche.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am your host, Kristen Bry. Jane McNair, that was a bold song.
It's Friday.
It is Friday.
It's just got Friday kind of song.
Did you say that there's over a dozen songs about douches?
You would be amazed.
Oh, man. This was the best one?
It was the most upbeat, I feel.
Well, I think we started off on a good start with our guest who's here to talk about a certain, I'm not going to call him that, but a certain ex-football player who played for the Packers. J.R. Radcliffe is coming back to the show. He is a Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel sports reporter who captures social stories and trending local sports topics. And the timeline of Brett Favre's involvement in a welfare scam in Mississippi certainly falls under that. So welcome back, JR.
Hey, good to be here again. How are you guys?
I'm so glad that you're on the live stream at first, because I was going to give you crap about your Browns jersey that you're wearing.
Yes, I'm not a Browns fan or anything, but this is a very special jersey. This is Joe Thomas, newly elected, or I should say, elected is probably the wrong word, newly selected for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We found that out on Thursday night. He's going to be inducted into Canton on I don't remember the date, but it's in August. And yes, Milwaukee's own Pro Football Hall of Famer. Very exciting.
That is exciting. But also, I'm happy that you were on the live stream so I could see your reaction to our intro song, because I think it took you by the surprise.
Definitely caught me off guard. Did not expect that. Didn't know that there was that much content around. Also, a word that I'm not fully comfortable saying out loud, but that's I'm glad we have it in song. That's perfect.
We do have it in song. So let's get started, because Jane actually sent this to me last night. Your article that was published yesterday of the timeline of Brett Favre's involvement in this, and she was like, "This is dense, but it feels important." And so luckily, we've had you, the author of this, on the show before. So I was like, I'm just going to see if JR can come on and talk about it rather than me trying to do this justice, because And you do give credit that this was a lot of reporting that came from Mississippi Today, from Anna Wolf. But how was it to kind of help like put this all together as far as explain this? Because it goes back to 2017.
Yeah, and it's something actually that's published a while ago, and I just keep updating it because there's plenty of new twists and turns. And the most recent coming yesterday when Brett Favre filed his own lawsuit, defamation lawsuit. But yeah, Anna Wolf, an independent organization, Mississippi Today, has done just an unbelievable job covering this, and there are lots of other organizations in there that are kind of synthesized into the timeline. But it was instructive for me just trying to figure out, okay, like I understand that there's fraud involved. I know Brett Favre isn't the only player here. And I was just trying to figure out, okay, well, how is he going to go to jail? Is he going to get sued? Is he, where are we with it? Did he just get caught up in something? So I was trying to parse that out myself. And it takes some rereading even when there's something new. It's like, okay, now what was he getting sued for exactly? Who was exactly doing the suing? And how culpable is he? That sort of thing. So that's what I was looking to do, and started building that thing, and it, like it resurfaces every few weeks when there's some new development in the whole thing.
And so for now, reading this, what I understand is that he has not been criminally charged with anything. The ex-governor has also not been criminally charged with anything. Who has been criminally charged?
So there's a couple people. The former head of the Department of Human Services in the state of Mississippi is a guy by the name of John Davis. He was in charge, and to kind of just set it up, this is the particular grant here is called TANF, TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, and it's federal money. It's a block grant that's given to every state, and then the state can decide how they want to disperse it. And Mississippi's decision, or the way they did it, is to distribute it to some nonprofits who theoretically are people who deal with those who are in need of assistance, and then let them handle it. There wasn't really any communication or documentation between John Davis and a woman by the name of Nancy New, who she and her son were heavily involved in one of these nonprofits. And both of them, by the way, have been arrested. They've had plea deals. Like they are major players. What Brett Favre's involvement, they're bigger players. They've had money go elsewhere as well. It has nothing to do with Brett Favre. They're in big trouble. But Brett Favre met with them, both of them actually, in 2017 when he was looking to get funding pulled together for a volleyball facility at Southern Mississippi, his alma mater, where his daughter was playing volleyball. And that's where things really start to go wrong. And what Nancy New did that was, as one of the more deceptive things here, is that the TANF money cannot be used for brick and mortar operations. They are specifically earmarked for families. So you can't just build a building with this money. That would be wrong. That would be counter to kind of the goal of the TANF grant. But what they did is they set it up like it was a lease and said, well, we're going to build, we'll give you this money to build this building, Southern Mississippi, but we're going to treat it as a lease operation, not here's money for construction, so that, we can use the building for needy families and have it, be multi-purpose, multi-use. That's not really what happened with the building. The building was built for volleyball. And so that was the biggest expenditure, the $5 million sent to Southern Mississippi ostensibly as a lease, but was actually for this building. That was one of the bigger chunks of money that was improperly used. But that's $5 million out of $77 million. Like this, there's a much broader, fraud scheme here. The thing is, Brett Favre was kind of at the forefront of fundraising for that building and trying to kind of work his connections to get some money. And there's more than just that building. There's a biomedical startup too that gets in here as well. But basically he was kind of nudging his buddies over and over and over for money, and they were willing to give it to him. And that ended up being, being fraudulent, including some money that Favre has paid back, some things he's still getting sued for. But that was kind of the starting point back in 2017 where things started going wrong.
So then because he hasn't been criminally charged, but there are lawsuits. So like, what are some of the lawsuits that he is on the hook? I mean, I don't know, the lawsuits aren't settled, but as far as what legally has been proven so far as his involvement, even if it's in lawsuits, not criminal charges.
Yeah. Like you said, criminally, he's not right now on the hook, and neither is former Governor Bryant, who was kind of his kind of main contact there for a while. He's no longer governor of Mississippi. He did 2 terms, and that was all that you can do in Mississippi. So he just was replaced by another governor. And so the state tried to recoup, first of all, $1.1 million that was paid to Favre for appearances, and he was going to record some some like health service, public service announcements on the radio, make some speaking appearances. Those never happened. So there were a couple payments made to him worth $1.1 million. Initially, the state sued him to get that money back because they figured out that he didn't make those appearances. He didn't, he kind of denied wrongdoing there. He did repay that money eventually. But now there's and there've been some amendments to this lawsuit as well. And there's a million different people that they're suing, including Favre, but then also like Favre Enterprises, and then his buddies with this startup group, and the school has gotten brought into this as well. But basically now it's sort of damages. Their position is that Brett Favre knew what he was doing, that he was pulling money, requesting that money be pulled anyway from this fund that was earmarked for something else, and that that there was some wrongdoing there. Favre's position is that there was no wrongdoing. He had no idea that that's where the money was coming from. He was consulting with old friends, but he had no idea that government money meant for something else was ever going to be used for his projects, which not everyone buys into that. That is his position right now. And now I think there's still a lot that could be developed. Like the Department of Justice could decide, actually, not only did that happen, but we actually can come up with some criminal charges for you. But that has not happened yet. And honestly, I'm not even sure if it will.
So then the update from yesterday. We were talking to J.R. Radcliffe, who is a Milwaukee Journal Sentinel sports reporter and captures social stories and trending local sports topics. And as of yesterday, he updated his timeline, or the timeline of former Packer Brett Favre's involvement in this welfare scandal in Mississippi, that now he is the one filing lawsuits.
Yes.
And so tell us more about these defamation lawsuits that have any legs.
He is coming after Shannon Sharpe, who is, of course, the brother of former Packers receiver and Favre's teammate Sterling Sharpe. He's on Undisputed every day with Skip Bayless and the Fox networks there. And he's coming after Pat McAfee, whom we know, if for no other reason, because he hangs out with Aaron Rodgers on Tuesdays. And,
Aaron Rodgers, the only guy who can get Aaron Rodgers to really bare his soul.
Yeah. Oh man, the content. Oh, the content is so much. There's so much.
We could talk about his 4 days in darkness if we have time.
Both of those gentlemen are now in the crosshairs of a defamation lawsuit. They both, to some, to paraphrase, both of them said to some degree that Favre stole money from poor people. Like that was kind of how they framed it, and it wasn't. I'm not a lawyer well enough to know what the threshold is. Favre is a public figure, so it's a lot harder to prove, sort of defamation, libel, anything like that. I don't know if you could specifically say Shannon Sharpe and Pat McAfee saying it cost him anything or what the deal is there. He didn't steal money directly from poor people. Like that's not what happened. But ultimately, you've got a lot of people coming down saying that he should have known better. He should have known that money was coming from somewhere and probably people who need it more than he does. So that's sort of the ethical, moral versus legal thing. The bigger interest to me was that he also filed suit against Shad White, who is the auditor for the state of Mississippi. And he's the guy basically in charge with finding all the figures and money and then turning it over to the Department of Justice to say, okay, do with it what you want. Initially, he said Favre was fine, that he behaved and did everything they asked him to do. In later interviews, not so much. He's sort of implying that there is some pretty moral grayness there that Brett Favre probably should have known better. So that's really interesting, all of it. And obviously McAfee and Sharpe are pretty big names. So I'm sure that there'll be a lot of people following this.
JR, has Favre been having money problems that we're unaware of or something? It just doesn't sound like very much money, $5 million to build a volleyball center. Why don't you pay for it yourself and put your name on it? What is with rich people? Jeez.
I completely agree. That is one of the takeaways here. Why? Presumably Brett Favre has a lot of money. And if you ask him to pay $5 million for a volleyball facility, can he just go to the bank? I think what we've seen is the answer is no. Whether he could, we don't know. Whether he decided that he had a way to pay for it without pulling it out of his own pockets, or he legitimately doesn't have that money in his pockets. Like that's something you have to consider. He was very persistent with his friends in the government in high places. He even came to them after there was some of the scandal had been revealed. Like people were already getting, in legal trouble, and he was still asking for more money, like to finish off the volleyball facility. It was wild. So I think we have to assume either he doesn't have the money, or he just felt like he could pay for it through other means, and it was very important to him. He committed to it, found out maybe he couldn't do it or wanted to do it another way, and then things start snowballing from there.
Well, and it's interesting to go back a little bit. You are a journalist. I do opinion. So we are in different sides of the aisle. But I think going back to what's happening with the defamation suit of what is the line because I feel like these commentators in sports, whether it's Skip Bayless, like they're kind of always stepping in it, but that's also kind of their job because they're literally, it's not just reporting like what you do. It is adding color, adding opinion. And like, I think as we talked about it, I would have to go back and listen to the show of when you work in opinion, how much you can give your opinion about something that hasn't been legally found yet. And also the ramifications of it. I mostly also think of it, and this is a little bit of a sidestep, but as of this morning, I was just seeing that, different commentators who've referred to Russell Westbrook as like a vampire, and his wife saying, his wife posting this and being like, ESPN, this is sick. Like my kids go to school and they have to talk to their kids about their dad, whether or not their dad's an actual vampire. And so do you feel, which is a little silly, but the kids are small, but like, is there a responsibility on the side of commentators and opinion, even though there's a lot of time to fill? Like, regardless of legality, is there a point here that they shouldn't have been making those claims if there's no legal charges yet?
I mean, that's a great question. I think all of media doesn't have a great answer for that. Yeah. It's challenging because it is a really nuanced situation. It's not obvious what's happening here. I mean, it seems pretty clear, I think, to a lot of people, but I'm guessing, Pat McAfee, Shannon Sharp, and whomever have talked about it without having all the details, and even not, someone who's put together a big timeline. I don't have all the details. I'm not there in Mississippi doing this reporting, which is very nuanced and has a lot of moving parts and things like that. So, Brett Favre's camp has denied all wrongdoing. Like he really feels like he did nothing wrong. So I guess he's a little burned by that.
All right. Well, JR will still be here when we come back, but we're going to switch gears to a different sport, different team, because Jay Crowder is coming home. So we're going to talk about that and maybe a little bit about TikToks. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Drum roll! You're a douche. I'm a douche. Just a big busy douche. And that's all I'll ever be.
It's easy to listen to your favorite local radio station anytime. Download the Civic Media app from the Apple or Google Play Store, then listen live or whenever you want from anywhere for free.
Monday morning at 8, don't miss Under the Helmet with the Gravedigger, featuring legendary Gilbert Brown and Earl Ingram. Football, life, and fun.
Earl, you've been driving a Yugo. They just gave you a brand new Ferrari with turbo boost. So enjoy it, brother.
Under the Helmet with the Gravedigger, Gilbert Brown and Earl Ingram. Monday morning at 8 on the Shaw, 540 AM and 101.1 FM WAUK.
Hey, this is Jim Santel. I am the host of Morning Cannolis. Every single Saturday morning from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., we talk about the major stories in law, in government, and the aspiration for justice in America. Delighted to have you join, call in, and be a part of our discussion right here on the networks of Civic Media.
You care for the house, the kids, and our future. A Shiro's day is never done. So let's start saving a little more now. Get free tips to help boost your retirement savings. Visit aceyourretirement.org.
Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Bright sunshine this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 29. Northwesterly winds 8 to 15 miles an hour. Clear skies and quiet again tonight. Lows dip down to about 16. High temperatures reach up to 39 tomorrow. Sunny skies and calm. Dry with temps a bit above average Sunday and Monday, and highs in the low 40s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 27 degrees.
WAUK 540 AM, Franklin's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
Milwaukee, you're my one-horse town. Milwaukee,
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry. We got Jane Matnair on the board, and we are talking to J.R. Radcliffe, who is a reporter at Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel and captures social stories and trending local sports topics. And moving on from Brett Favre, we have some exciting news about a certain Crowder, not to be confused with Trey Crowder, who is a Tennessee, like, redneck liberal comedian, but Jay Crowder, Marquette alum. We went head to head with him when he on the Phoenix Suns when we played them in the finals, and he was very good. I remember that series being like, I wish he wasn't so good, but now he's going to be a Buck, which is very exciting, right? This is good news.
Yeah, he was even better when the Miami Heat eliminated the Bucks from the playoffs the year before that. He played with Miami, so the Bucks are probably sick of seeing him now. They're getting him. It's one of those transactions that, and I think this is actually kind of rare, where you've heard his name associated with the Bucks for months. He's been sitting out all season. He's been unhappy with his situation in Phoenix, and he'd been asking for a trade. And the Bucks were kind of a team that where he'd fit pretty nicely. They kind of need that sort of defender, sort of a 6'8" type defender who can do some of the things that he can do, and it just seemed like a natural match forever. But it took up until the final hours before the trade deadline before it actually happened, and he was actually traded from the Suns to the Nets in the Kevin Durant deal first. And it's not entirely clear when he'll be available because he's been sitting out since last postseason. He hasn't been in any NBA games since then, so I assume there's going to be a little bit of an acclimation process. But like I said, fits what they need. He's kind of a missing piece, and of course, Bucks fans remember them adding PJ Tucker for the 2021 home stretch and how valuable he was in the playoffs. And I think they're hoping to catch that lightning in a bottle once again.
And so, explain a little bit further, because it's not that he's hurt, but why has he not been playing? Is just because of a personality clash, or is it just because? And I would hope that even in those situations, he's still practicing, so it's not that he's totally cold. But like, what is the situation there that he just wouldn't have been playing despite being a good player?
Yeah, and not practicing. I'm sure he's working out. I'm sure he's keeping healthy and stuff. But that it's not 100% clear, which is maybe if there is a small caution for Bucks fans, is kind of trying to unpack that a little bit. Lori Nickel did a great story at jsonline.com trying to sort of break that down. And he said it's not about money, that he felt like it wasn't that he didn't feel like he was getting compensated. It wasn't about his starting job, which kind of had disappeared in Phoenix. But there's definitely some animosity there with him and the coach. The coach is kind of like, I just got to move on. Monty Williams, who's by all other accounts is a really easy guy to get, to work with. He's a pretty laid back, chill personality. And he just wasn't happy. And it's Phoenix is a good team. I mean, they could certainly, especially with Durant now, they're going to be one of the contenders for the championship once again, the Western Conference. So it's not like, and I mean, Jay Crowder's not a star. He's a role player. And so it is curious, right? Like why would a role player not want to play with the Phoenix Suns? He was probably getting paid roughly what he's worth. His role was probably roughly what it should have been. He just didn't like it there. And he has bounced around a lot. He's played, I think, for 8 teams, 10 plus years. So, I mean, is he a malcontent? I think is the concern Bucks fans would have. Like, is he gonna not want to play here? What's his role here? The Bucks did get to meet with Crowder before they made this trade. That he was given permission to sort of talk things over. Presumably, that all got hashed out. That okay, the Bucks are telling him exactly what his role is going to be, and he was happy by that. And you look at his tweets. He's clearly very happy to be coming to Milwaukee. So something there was ironed out in advance, and that does, I think, lend a little bit of calm to sort of the unpredictability of it.
Of the personalities. Is there any concern or love lost as far as who we traded him for between Wara, Hill, or Ibaka?
I mean, I'd feel really bad for George Hill if he got traded away from a second championship Bucks team. That would be the second time that the Bucks have won a title, and George Hill was traded during the season. So I feel bad for him, but ultimately they gave nothing that they were going to use in the playoffs. To make it sort of a crude way of looking at it, but Jordan Wara, interesting, but wasn't really developing into anything more than just kind of a guy off the bench. George Hill, a veteran, he was having a really nice year, but he's still not somebody that you would have seen getting major rotation minutes in the postseason. Serge Ibaka was already unhappy with his role with the Bucks, had left the team. Everybody was kind of cool with that, but they were saying they will find a new spot for him, a new team. So no loss in terms of player rotation. They gave up 5 second-round picks, which is a lot. But if you go back over the past decade and look at the best players in the NBA, to come from the second round. You do have Nikola Jokic, who is a 2-time MVP, could be third this year. That was back in 2014. I mean, that was a great hit. But those picks are like lottery tickets. The odds of that happening are so remote. As far as I know, Jokic since 2014, again, there have been no All-Stars drafted in the second round of the NBA draft. It's not like the NFL draft or the Major League Baseball draft for that matter, where second round guys are still possibly franchise changing players. That's definitely not what happens in the NBA. So it's not really, it's a high volume of things to give up, 8 things total, but it ultimately, I don't think is anything that's going to hurt them.
And then finally, totally different subject, but then sometimes, so since I also, my other job is at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. JR and I work together. But one of the new things that we are doing at Milwaukee Journal Sentinel is some of the reporters who do the daily briefing newsletter are now also on TikTok. And JR's are very good. So how are you liking making TikToks, JR?
I'm enjoying them quite a bit. I'm definitely a person who loves my phone, but I have not been on TikTok, and I don't want to say I'm too old for it, but I'm probably I'm not in the demo. So it's taking a little bit of getting used to it, getting to know how to be good on TikTok, how to be funny on TikTok. I think with a lot of work, I maybe could get there, but I'm not going to say that I've integrated it into my life, but it's a little bit of a new frontier for me, and we're having a lot of fun. My colleagues, Bill Glauber and Sophie Carson as well, are doing a lot of great stuff. We do the newsletters 5 days a week, and then we do a 60-second TikTok that sort of summarizes what you see in the newsletter, and it's fun. Gives us a chance to show off our office a little bit and show off our personality a little bit. It's been really cool.
They've been great. So first I would say if you're subscribed to the daily briefing, as far as that is one of my 4 things that I read in my preparation for this show, and is a great summation of the news of the day for southeastern Wisconsin, but also Wisconsin as a whole. And so certainly get that. It pops in your inbox. I think it's 7 a.m., 7:10, between 7 a.m. and 7:10 every day, because it's even on the weekends. And so certainly subscribe to that. But also check out the social medias of Journal Sentinel for the quick hits and JR's. I remember saying that. I was like, JR would be really good at this after we had interviewed you and you'd come on this show multiple times. And lo and behold, you are.
It's fun. I'm glad we get to do it. And those newsletters are really fun too. We can kind of experiment a little bit with our voice and stuff, and get people the news with their coffee, and give them the greatest hits before they start their day.
Absolutely. All right. Well, J.R. Radcliffe, check him out on Milwaukee Journal Sentinel for his social stories and trending sports topics. Thank you for joining us today. Kind of last minute, but we will have you back soon.
All right. Sounds good. We'll see you then.
All right. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Well, that'll do it for the noon hour. When we come back, some more debates on etiquette for the 21st century. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Eric was way behind on his taxes.
I owed a lot of money to the IRS, almost $15,000. I tried to make payments.
The IRS wasn't satisfied with Eric's efforts, so they came after him full force.
They're coming to put a lien and a hold on all my income, my home, my car. I was just overwhelmed at what to do.
Then Eric called Optima Tax Relief.
When Optima Tax got involved, the calls would stop, the threats would stop. It was easy like 1, 2, 3.
Optima Tax Relief is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, and their team of expert tax professionals took care of Eric's problem.
I owe $15,000, and now my debt is clean. I don't owe anything.
Take Eric's advice.
If you have a tax problem, you need to call Optima Tax now.
Call Optima Tax Relief for a free consultation. Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
You are listening to WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W266 DR Waukesha, always streaming on the Civic Media app.
This is CBS News on the Hour, your home for original reporting. I'm Steve Kathan. Federal agents at the Indiana home of former Vice President Mike Pence. CBS's Stephen Portnoy.
Sources say FBI agents from the Indianapolis field office are conducting the search, and that it's not being overseen by either of the special counsels now running probes into how Donald Trump and Joe Biden handled classified documents. Like the search of President Biden's homes in Delaware, the search of Mike Pence's home in Indiana is being done on a consensual basis without a warrant. Attorneys for Pence say they discovered classified documents at his home last month.
Overseas now. Prayers in Syria ahead of the first Sabbath since the quake that killed more than 22,000 in that country and Turkey. CBS's Chris Livesay spoke to a member of an American rescue team.
So that's still a possibility. There could still be survivors here. We hope so, and that's why we're going to keep trying. Time may be dwindling, but there's reason for hope. In the form of Yagis Ulaj, just 10 days old. He spent 4 of them buried alive. His mother was also saved.
3 people, including a 6-year-old boy, were pulled out alive today in Syria. CBS's Ramy Inocencio has more on the life-threatening situation for many survivors.
The World Health Organization is now warning of this second humanitarian disaster if those survivors don't get access to food and water, to shelter, and to medicine as fast as possible. In addition, an untold number of people, we're told, may have already died from hypothermia in the past 4 days while buried under that rubble.
Well, CBS's Cammie McCormick has the latest on stepped-up Russian attacks in Ukraine.
Russia launched a barrage of missiles and drones into 6 regions of Ukraine, once again hitting power stations. In the capital, they shot down 6 missiles, according to the mayor. In neighboring Moldova, they've summoned the Russian ambassador because one of the Russian missiles flew over that country.
Back here at home, a monthly court hearing in Michigan for Ethan Crumbley.
Mr. Crumbley, can you hear us okay, sir?
Yes, I can.
And are you okay with proceeding via Zoom this morning?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
The teenager facing murder and terrorism charges in the shooting deaths of
Was on our side. We had eyes on the suspect. We had him pinned down. He was hunkered down.
The sheriff says the chase for the man who will be charged in the wounding of 2 police officers in separate shootings. Texas Republican Attorney General Ken Paxton's agreed to apologize and pay more than $3 million to former staffers who accused him of corruption. Wall Street, right now the Dow is up 114 points. This is
The Shaw 101 FM, New Berlin's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane McNair. Here's what you need to know. No charges will be filed against a former Wisconsin Democratic leader who was involved in a fatal car crash in Ashland County. 27-year-old Alyssa Ortman of Pennsylvania and her 5-year-old daughter were killed in the crash involving former Senate Minority Leader Janet Bewley on July 22nd. Bewley pulled out of a beach entrance and into the path of Ortman's vehicle. After that collision, Ortman's car spun across the road where it was struck by another vehicle. Wisconsin State Patrol records show Ortman was driving 100 miles an hour at the time. Your chance to get free COVID-19 test kits is ending soon. With the federal government ending the national public health emergency this spring, vaccines and at-home test kits will come with a price tag. Moderna and Pfizer both plan to increase the cost of their vaccines 3 to 5 times what the government was paying. As of right now, you can still get free at-home COVID tests from covid.gov. I'm Jane McNair. This is Civic Media News.
The Civic Media team would like to say congratulations. More than 200 Wisconsin businesses and nonprofits are receiving a free advertising campaign through our one-day $1 million advertising giveaway. If you missed out, our local sales team would still love to help you with your own campaign. Go to civicmedia.us and click on the sponsorship tab. Again, civicmedia.us and sponsorship. New and still growing. Advertise today with the Civic Media network of radio stations.
Up North News Radio is Wisconsin's new choice for progressive talk about important state issues, from the team that brings you the news through social media, newsletters, and here on the radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Join me weekday mornings from 6 to 8 a.m.
You're not too cool for me. And in return, I reciprocate that sentiment. I'll never be too cool for you. I was a man with a plan, but now I'm a dad with a decree, and you can't take that from me. Please let it be noted that I told my job they can dock my pay. Right now, it's just too important to take you to school every day. I want to be legendary for you. I want you to puff out your chest when you go to school, the same way I do. I walk taller because of you, because I found everything to live for.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
We stand on the shoulders of women who came before us.
Women who fought for their own financial futures.
And now it's our turn.
Join us. Visit WeSaySaveIt.org and take control of your financial future by saving for retirement.
A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
A progressive voice from Beaver Dam to Kenosha. WAUK 540 AM. Always streaming at WAUK Radio.
As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry is an independent product and has a joint sales agreement with Civic Media. Enjoy.
Everything is on demand now. But there's something about that appointment watching of HBO that's still there.
It's also called the art of the tease, and that's how they get you.
Trying to think, what's my tease for tomorrow?
Kristen sets herself on fire. Tune in at 11:20, and then we'll tell you why.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin!
Hello, Wisconsin. Welcome to the 1 o'clock hour of As Goes Wisconsin, the no sour, haha, power, funny hour.
It's changing on a daily basis.
It does.
Now. I kind of like the flexibility of the moniker.
Yeah, I feel like it's just a basically somehow, some way, as long as all of those words get into some sort of string of a sentence, that's all that matters.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
We will go with that. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today, no matter where you're listening to us, on the radio, on a streaming device of some sort, on your Civic Media app, or on it as a podcast later. Thank you for spending time with us on this beautiful sunny Friday. And so for this hour, we are going to do some bleeped out trivia in the next segment because South Park came back. And South Park, if you don't remember, the 1999 South Park movie was found to have the most swear words of any animated film ever. I don't know if it still does, but at that time, it broke records. So we might do some other trivia about profanity in movies in the next segment. And then after that, he was bumped on Wednesday by the president, which I think is okay.
Yeah, I think that's, you have to live with that.
He understood. But Michael Sampson, founder of Swarm Events, and my husband, is going to be here because he has his first inaugural sports card show at Gather in downtown Milwaukee this weekend in partnership with the Bucks. He's very excited about it. I will be working the event for him. I don't know if I'm getting paid or not. I'm going to guess.
Wife.
I would guess I'm not getting paid, but
I think that's a fair assumption.
But that's okay. He does a lot for me, so I can do this for him. But he's going to come and obviously promote the event a little bit, but also just have a conversation about sports cards and collectibles and hobbies that we have. And, because when we first met, this was his pandemic hobby. Like some people got sourdough starters.
Oh, yeah.
Some people did banana bread. Some people redid their house.
Learned an instrument.
He got very into sports cards. And he is still very into sports cards. At any given point where I am scrolling through my phone, it's probably most likely that I am on one of the social medias. And it is, if he is doing that and scrolling through his phone, it is more than likely that he is on eBay looking at sports cards.
I mean, this is a whole subculture.
Oh yeah. I've learned a lot more about sports cards just through him. But I think the bigger question is it's fun to poke fun at him, but it also is a very lucrative business if you can do it right, as far as having the money to invest, how much something that at one point was worth very little money can skyrocket to being worth a lot of money. And it's not just sports cards, it's Beanie Babies, it's Pokemon cards, it's this idea of collectibles and the value that we place on them. So he'll be here to talk about that. And for now, though, we are going to return back to our Emily Post for 2023. And this is a list that was published by New York Magazine as 194 tips about how to text, how to tip, how to engage in the 21st century. They made the call on tons of different scenarios and what the correct etiquette is. And Jane and I are here to debate whether or not we agree with their call on the subject.
Is this the correct behavior?
Is this the correct etiquette in these scenarios? And so we are on to number 6. And I'm interested to see your reaction to this one. So, number 6, never wake up your significant other on purpose, ever.
No.
Gut reaction.
No. What if the house is on fire?
I think it's for more selfish reasons. So they go on to explain, and don't turn on the lights when they're asleep. Jet lagged and want to talk? Don't do it. Think someone is coming to kill you? Work it out yourself.
Oh, please. Isn't that why you have a significant other, so they can confront the person who's coming to the house to kill you?
Probably. And it's interesting. So in my scenario, I'm a very heavy sleeper. Like, unless my anxiety is running high and my own brain will not let me sleep, I will sleep through almost anything. You remember almost a year ago, was it over a year ago, when the alert went out for almost all of southeastern Wisconsin at like 4 a.m?
Yes.
And everyone was so upset that they're like, well, why am I getting this? This is, miles away from my home. And I think almost within the same month, there was a severe storm warning as well.
That sounds about right.
I slept through both of those.
You did?
Yes.
Wow, that's a skill.
And Mike is a very, very light sleeper and wakes up for almost anything. And so he had to wake me up in both of those scenarios. And, or maybe he only woke me up for the severe storm because the chance that we would have to move out of our bedroom to a safer spot in the house. He may have let me sleep through the other alert. But
I assume this means that Mike is the one that has to take care of Cliffy, the dog, in the middle of the night.
he never actually, Cliff's pretty good. He doesn't need to be taken care of in the middle of the night.
That's pretty good.
But I wake up earlier, so I most of the time
take
care of him in the morning, even though he would love to sleep in with his dad. So, but I don't know. I think I understand this so far that if it's just for your own purposes, let them sleep or be considerate.
Well, yeah, certainly. I mean, you're not going to wake him up if it's just, what do you want for dinner tonight? That would annoy me if I was having a nice nap,
Or turning the lights on.
Yeah.
Because we now, everyone who has a smartphone has a flashlight on your phone. So if you really need to get in the room and find something, you can use your phone for light. You don't have to turn on.
After the show, I want you to show me how I'd use that.
Well, you have an Android, so we'll see if I can actually figure it out. I can certainly show you on my phone how to use it.
I think it's there somewhere. I'm not sure.
All right. So we're both in agreement that in most scenarios, you should avoid waking up your spouse unless it's an actual emergency.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right. Number 7. While on a date, if you find you're talking a lot, ask yourself, when was the last time I asked a question?
That's a good one.
That is a good one. There's no need to keep a tally or trade queries back and forth like it's a tennis match, but do at least be aware of how long you're holding the floor and take care to share it.
That's more important than I can stress.
And I totally agree with this advice. I think it is a red flag when you go out with someone and they do not ask questions, even if they're charming, even if they're funny, if they are not interested in you at all, and they're just interested in your adoration.
Yeah.
Red flag. But the thing about this piece of advice is the people who do this, I don't think that they do this.
And I also think they think that they're fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
And why wouldn't everyone just want to listen to me?
I definitely know some people who don't ask questions, or if they do ask questions, it's only so that they can then answer it themselves.
Oh, that's maddening.
It is maddening. All right, so we agree on that one as well. Number 8. It's acceptable to tell any kind of lie in order to leave a drinks date.
Wow.
If the conversation is so painful you're considering making up a story about a sick animal, your date will probably feel relieved.
Wow.
It's acceptable to tell any, but what if I would have a really hard time doing this. Maybe now, I agree with the advice. Like, your time is short. Don't waste it on things that you know are not going to go anywhere. But I know for myself, I am, like, in my bones, a people pleaser. So that would be really, I don't know if I've ever done that. I've let dates kind of linger on until it's finally like the Midwest goodbye of like, okay, it's time to go. And then I just do not text back or call back again. But I've never gotten up and just been given an excuse like, oh, sorry, it's been 30 minutes. I know, but I got to go. Have you?
Well, no, I'm usually a lot more blunt than that.
I
was.
So you won't lie. You'll just tell them this isn't working.
I think you're a wonderful person. It's been a lovely evening. Good night. And I mean, I don't have an issue with little white lies, but saying any lie is acceptable, I think that's terrible. I mean, you could claim your mother got hit by a car. I mean, who would do that?
But
if you have to lie, then make it something innocuous. I have to go get hearts of romaine and the store is closing. I don't care what it is, but just don't.
So what's the threshold? Can you lie about your pets? Or can your pets and kids be pawns, but not your mother?
I don't think your kids and your parents should be pawns like that.
So it's humans?
Yeah.
Pets are fine?
Sure.
A closing store?
A closing store. I got to get fish food.
I also feel like the more trivial the lie would be, the more telling, and hopefully the other person gets it, that I'm obviously telling a lie, trying to not hurt your feelings right now, because this is not going to go anywhere, my friend. And so I need to go pick up tampons. I'm sorry.
That's one way to get out of it.
Like, I have a heavy flow right now. Sorry, buddy.
As I said, I think that would be an effective way to get out of that date.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Too bad. Hopefully, knock on wood, you and I will never have to deal with that for a drinks date again. But solid advice. All right. When we come back, some bleeped out trivia. Stay tuned. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
I know they hitting on the spot, mind your manners. You'll see.
Ty Christian from Lords of the Trident. Can you say Max Inc. Radio rocks, Jimmy K is awesome in Japanese?
Sure. Let's see. How do I say rocks? Let me see. Sugoi! Max Inc. Radio wa sugoi datta omoimasu. I just said you're great,
Thank you. You're great too. Original local music from Wisconsin. It's Max Inc. Radio on Civic Media. Saturday night, 6 p.m. to midnight. We are local music.
I was just curious as to why you called it the Paul Revere Show.
The Paul Revere Show is named this way because the poem that we all know, the famous ride, the poem was written to rally the troops to fight slavery and fight for democracy. And so I named the show the Paul Revere Show because I thought it was the time to get on the air and talk about democracy.
The Paul Revere Show with Mark Thompson. Listen Mondays 7 to 8 p.m. always on the Civic Media app.
Courage. I learned it from my adoptive mom. Hold my hand.
You hold my hand. Learn about adopting a teen from foster care at adoptuskids.org. You can't imagine the reward. Brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
You are never far away from your favorite radio station. We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app. And if you missed your favorite show or game, listen to a podcast of it anytime on the app or our website, civicmedia.us.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Bright sunshine this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 29. Northwesterly winds 8 to 15 miles an hour. Clear skies and quiet again tonight. Lows dip down to about 16. High temperatures reach up to 39 tomorrow. Sunny skies and calm. Dry with temps a bit above average Sunday and Monday, and highs in the low 40s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 27 degrees.
WAUK 540 AM, New Berlin's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin on the Civic Media Network. I am your host, Kristen Bry. Jane Matnair is on the board, and this is an interactive segment, but you got to act fast because it's only 8 minutes. So if you're watching the live stream, you're welcome to chat in there, and we will read your answers. If you are on your phone, you can shoot us a text, 844-967-2789. But we'll see how well Jane and I can do on this.
I'm curious.
And our movie knowledge. Because were you a South Park fan? Or still? I mean, it's still on.
I've quite honestly, I have never seen one episode.
Really?
Never.
I feel like you'd like it.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, the thing with South Park, and I haven't been I'm certainly not someone who's seen every single episode, every single season. But there is the social commentary for now over almost 25 years, because that show started when I was in middle school. I remember I was in it was the late 90s.
That's amazing.
And I certainly don't think I got it then, but then as I got into my 20s and the cultural relevance of how they approached social commentary, right? And I mean, and they are also then obviously the legacy that they did with their social commentary on Mormonism in Book of Mormon.
Which I still have a hard time putting together that the guys who created South Park created the Book of Mormon, because I love that show.
So, and that's what I mean. I feel like we should go, I'll in the same way that I'm going to make you a Rihanna playlist, I will go pick out some of the best, most poignant episodes of South Park, because they also have no limits of who they'll go after.
Oh, I know.
Like, everyone is fair game. I remember, I think a couple seasons ago, the hypocrisy of LeBron James, who does so much social activism in the United States, like for Black communities and for poor communities.
And for kids.
But when it came to China, really didn't want to step on those toes as far as Taiwan and Hong Kong and some civil rights issues over there. And they just blasted him as far as his hypocrisy for that.
Equal opportunity offenders.
Yes. And so it is the 26th season of South Park that started this week. And as I said before, while the 1999 South Park movie was found to have the most swear words of any animated film, it's not even close to cracking the top 10 for all movies with swear words in it, which makes sense.
Yeah.
The threshold for animated films, I don't
Slightly
think
different.
I don't think they had a lot of competition.
Doesn't happen a lot in Pixar.
So can you name, and I think we're going to have competing answers because it's when they say, can you name 3 of the 5 movies with the most swear words? I think it's at least the one the trivia question I'm reading. It's not clear what is considered a swear word.
Oh, well, that makes it tougher.
It makes it tougher, right?
Yes.
Like, are we just talking about the 7?
Right.
The 7 you can't say on the radio?
Right.
Or is it just F-bombs? Because I saw a conflicting report of the top 10 with just F-bombs. So we'll see how they compare. But if you had to guess, what would come to mind as far as movies with the most swear words?
Scarface for sure.
Okay.
With Al Pacino.
Mm-hmm. Good one.
I never saw Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels or whatever that Guy Ritchie movie is, but I would
Good
imagine
one.
that's pretty far up there.
Mm-hmm. I thought Pulp Fiction and basically every Quentin Tarantino movie would be up there.
Yeah, that's a fair bet too.
What else? I'm trying to not look at the answers that I have in my sheet so I can play this fairly.
Those are the biggest ones that come to the top of my mind.
And so if you have guesses for this, we will read them on air. 844-967-2789. Because I want to guess a couple more before we just go straight to the answers. Because there's also bonus points if you can guess which actor has swore the most across his his career. And for me, that has to be Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh, wow.
Don't you think?
Yeah, you might be right. I would think Al Pacino would be a close contender, but I think Samuel L. Jackson will have the lead.
I mean, he has almost has a trademarked catchphrase.
Yeah, I know. We can't.
But I can't say it on air.
We can't say that. Don't make me move that fast.
I will not. But what else are we missing? Are we missing any gangster movies besides Scarface?
But the old gangster movies just weren't that profanity.
Like Godfather, no. But I feel like if Matt Miller was here, he'd have a lot more answers than we do.
He could probably list off a dozen. What about the scary movies? What about the Scream series? You think any of those are up there? Django Unchained or Django Unchained.
Yeah, that's a good one.
From the
that's
262.
It would be interesting to rank the Quentin Tarantino's movies of which one had the worst. Because I remember, this is a quick story before we get to the answers. So I remember in our family cabin, it was also my grandfather's hunting lodge.
Mm-hmm.
There was a loft that looked down into the main living room. And I was a kid. And I remember I wasn't allowed to watch Pulp Fiction. So of course, what did I do? I went to the loft and I looked down to see what was going on. And I don't think my parents really liked the movie. I had no idea what was going on in the movie, but I do remember a lot of cursing.
Texter from this 310, Yellowstone has to have the most F-bombs ever on a show, but that's TV.
That's TV. All right, so let's get to the top 5 movies for swear words, even though we don't know what swear words is defined. Number 1, Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh, I turned that movie off halfway through.
Oh, you didn't like it?
No.
Oh, I loved it. I felt like that was Leonardo DiCaprio's best performance ever for me. Number 2 is Uncut Gems.
And I've watched some of those episodes.
No, it's episodes. It's a movie with Adam Sandler.
Oh. I thought it was a TV
It's
series.
a very intense movie. Like a very intense movie. Number 3 is Casino. Number 4 is Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. And number 5 is Fury.
Scarface didn't even make it?
And then the actor who said the most swears in a film is Jonah Hill. So there you go. All right, when we come back, Michael Sampson is here. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
WAUK 540 AM, Brookfield's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
CBS News Brief. Federal agents are searching former Vice President Pence's home in Indiana for classified documents. Attorney Charles McCullough is a former intelligence inspector general and says it's been in the works.
My understanding is that the delay would have been the negotiation with the vice president's counsel
But this is a consensual search.
Sources say it has nothing to do with investigations into former President Trump. The death toll after the earthquake in Turkey and Syria now at least 22,000. CBS's Ian Lee.
Monday's earthquakes flattened entire neighborhoods. Now tens of thousands of people camp out in the bitter cold, with many afraid to return home, even if their buildings still stand.
Two brothers will play on the opposing Super Bowl teams for the first time this Sunday. Ed Kelsey is the father of Eagles Jason and the Chiefs Travis Kelsey.
Well, I started dreaming about that when Travis was drafted in 2013. You know, that's always, boy, would that be awesome.
CBS News Brief. I'm Peter King.
A progressive voice from Manitowoc to Janesville. WAUK 540 AM. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
For Civic Media News, I'm Terry Bell. Here's what you need to know. Students at the University of Wisconsin in Madison who qualify for Pell Grants will have the cost of rooms, meals, and other fees covered. Chancellor Jennifer Mnuchin made the announcement at yesterday's Board of Regents meeting. The Pell Pathway program is only available to students from Wisconsin. No state money will be used. Democrats are still pushing to replace Elections Commissioner Bob Spindell. All 11 Democrats in the state Senate sent a letter to Majority Leader Devin LeMahieu last week. They object to Spindell's comments after the November election, praising lower voter turnout in minority districts in Milwaukee. In sports, the Bucks beat the Lakers last night 115-106. Earlier yesterday, the Bucks got former Marquette star Jay Crowder in a 4-team trade. Milwaukee sent point guard George Hill to Indianapolis. I'm Terry Bell, and this is Civic Media News.
Hey everybody, how we doing? I'm Charlie Barons, inviting you to join me Saturdays and or Sundays at noon. It's a horse apiece, whatever you decide. We're doing the Cripes Cast, where we talk to people for and or from the Midwest, and it's more fun than a 6-pack of Jolly Good. Okay, the pride of Random Lake, that Jolly Good is. Anyway, it's on your Civic Media station and the Civic Media app. And do me a favor, tell your folks I says hi. Okay, real good.
Hey, this is Jim Santel. I am the host of Morning Cannolis. Every single Saturday morning from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., we talk about the major stories in law, in government, and the aspiration for justice in America. Delighted to have you join, call in, and be a part of our discussion right here on the networks of Civic Media.
You've got questions about navigating the healthcare system? Kristen Lyerly helps us find answers and discusses other issues at the intersection of healthcare and politics. Hometown Health, Thursday mornings at 7:30 on Up North News Radio.
You know him as the nose tackle for the Green and Gold, 1993 to 1999, and again 2001 to 2003. 125 games, 292 tackles, 7 sacks, and a Super Bowl ring. But there's more to life than stats, and there's more to life than football. You're about to find out. Under the Helmet with the Gravedigger, featuring Packers legend Gilbert Brown and Earl Ingram. Monday mornings at 8 on the Shaw and on the Civic Media app.
Yo, this goes out to all the hobby enthusiasts. When I'm not at work, what do? I do sexy Melissa things that I'm into. They're called hobbies. I'm talking hobbies. Yeah. Creative artsy type, that's me, all right. Late at night, drawing with my Pixar light. Gotta get the shading on my face just right. I'm doing a self-portrait.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin on the Civic Media Network. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Matnair. You are welcome to join the conversation, especially if you are a sports card fanatic or another collectible item of things that you love, your hobbies and things that you like to spend your time doing or investing your money into. 844-967-2789, because this weekend there is a card show in downtown Milwaukee, and the creator of the event is Swarm Event founder, former candidate for Milwaukee mayor, and my husband, Michael Sampson, who is in studio with us. Welcome back to the show. It's been since before we were married that you were on, I think.
Excited to be back. I'm not sure why there's no green room with potato lays waiting for me, but maybe next time.
Maybe next time.
If I had had more time, Mike, there would have been a Borgish-mort of Olays for you.
Okay, Jane.
So to set this up, I just want to tell the story of when Mike and I first met in fall of 2020. He had already been he had refound his desire to be invested in sports cards. And it was something that you had started as a kid, but then you got away from. But tell a little bit more of how you got back into sports cards.
Well, I grew up with sports cards. I think my dad would kind of pawn. My sisters were in dance, so they had to get all their dance outfits paid for. And I'm like, hey, what do I get out of this? I got to sit through all these long dance shows and watch them do their thing. And he's like, how about sports cards? So we started taking me to Irv's Sports Shack in Muskego, Wisconsin, which is now, I think, paved. Not there anymore. But we used to go, and every weekend he'd buy me cards. You'd open them together. And it was a special father-son thing until my sisters wanted to do it as well.
And then you didn't want to do it anymore?
I still wanted to do it, but they were breaking into our, my father and son time. So what? They got dance outfits and sports cards now? It was unfair. I think I'd steal most of their good cards anyway. But
But then you abandoned it, and then what made you get back into it at the start of the pandemic?
Yeah, I wish I never abandoned it. So I started kind of in the junk wax era, they call it, in the 90s, when everything was really mass produced. The Ken Griffey Jr. card, I don't even know how many are out there, but just millions from the 1989 Upper Deck. So I abandoned it during high school, college. I wish I didn't, because those were like the Tom Brady days and Peyton Manning days, and some when stuff started to pick up and got more expensive. Jane, what do you think the biggest sale for a sports card ever is? How much money?
Boy, can you tell me which sport it is?
Baseball.
I will say $2 million.
This 2022, the 1952 Mickey Mantle card sold for $12.6 million.
Wow. A piece of cardboard.
Wow.
So my dad likes to tell stories of how he used to put it in his bike spokes and probably ruined hundreds of those, like a lot of people in that time. But I went away from the cards during college and stuff, and then pandemic hit. I was bored sitting at home, and I'm like, what can I do to pass the time? Because I can't do events and get people together like I'm used to doing. Started pulling out the old nostalgia and sports cards and selling, and I had a couple friends that were doing it at the time and wrote me back in.
And it's not something that's gone away, even with the pandemic and the pandemic kind of going away and events coming back. It's still very much a staple of your daily life.
It maybe has half of our loft covered with cards, but it's fun, just I'm saving for our future together, Kristen.
That's true. It's our kids' college fun. But I just want to tell this story. So when we first started dating, everything happened pretty quickly. And so one of our friends had been like, your whole story sounds like a Hallmark Christmas movie. And so I came up with the idea of your first Christmas present. I created a fake Hallmark Christmas movie, like DVD sleeve. And so our friend, Kelsey, who's an incredible graphic designer, we took an actual Hallmark Christmas movie poster, and the original movie was called Christmas Under the Stars. And I changed it to Christmas at the Bars.
So Milwaukee.
And we literally, because in the original one, there was like some other sign. There was a sign in the background that had whatever town they were supposed to be in. She changed it to Milwaukee of like up in lights. And she superimposed Mike's face on the guy and my face on the girl. Mike's never had more hair than he does in this picture on this fake DVD. But then I came up with the synopsis for the movie. And so this is how it went. When Kristen, a comedian, journalist, video producer, moves back to Wisconsin after 17 years to save democracy, she matches with Samson, a handsome basketball card mogul on Hinge. As these two lovable cheeseheads begin to spend lots of time together, dodge COVID while supporting local bars, and rescue a 10-year-old chihuahua, the couple rediscovers what matters most during the holiday season. And Samson teaches Kristen the importance of cleaning up her apartment. So it was something from the get-go. But now you've incorporated it into your business, which is you do events, and you have an event this weekend. So tell us more about that.
Milwaukee Card Show. It's happening at Gather. I think we say Gather in the Deer District or Gather in Deer District. Right across from the Fiserv Forum downtown. Gather is the event space above Good City Brewing. So we're gonna have 45 vendors, tables. There's a Milwaukee baseball team that's going to be coming down. I don't think I could say their name on air.
Oh.
But they're going to do a little VR home run derby. So giving out free packs at the door. First 25 kids get some free cards. We're going to have some fun. We're going to have a lot of good vendors down there. Hopefully it's something that, there's some great card shows across the area. Oak Creek does one first Saturday of every month. That's been real popular. But everyone can't make it down to Oak Creek. So we're going to post up in downtown Milwaukee. Hopefully people can make it down. Disney on Ice is also going on. So if you're coming down, prepare for a parking spot in one of the garages or over a little east of things by Water Street. It's always safe. But yeah, it's going to be a fun day. Hopefully I don't buy too much. Hopefully I don't bring more stuff home, but we will see.
Are you selling any of your stuff there?
I am. I'm giving my cards to Paul, who will be sitting at a table, and he'll hopefully sell some stuff for us.
How many different vendors?
So we have 45 tables total. I think there's about 25 vendors, including Paul and some other great people in the area.
All right.
Mitch's Card Shop from Mequon, AJ's Collectibles from Greenfield. So we got some heavy hitters coming in.
Is there
12
also
to
going to
5.
be memorabilia as well as cards?
Yes.
Okay.
So probably some. I think someone's bringing a John Morant ball. Lance is bringing a nice Super Bowl Aaron Rodgers jersey.
So tell that story. Well, actually, hold off on that story. So you can buy your tickets at swarmevents.com/Milwaukee Card Show. The VIP early tickets are sold out, right? And so you can still get the regular tickets, 12 to 5. Gather at Deer District. I will be there because I'm working because I'm a great wife. But going back to the question of collectibles, because I find it granted, I am someone who doesn't like to bet because if I'm going to have my money, I like my money. Like some of the times the investment of these things, that's like, because you buy them not for necessarily the sentimental value of them. You buy them as an investment, right?
Do both. I mean,
Okay.
it's kind of like the stock market at times. So like all the heavy NBA stuff that happened this past week, one guy gets traded to a new team, his card value goes up. So it's just certain things happen in life that, that's a good time to sell. Brock Purdy came out of nowhere and was a big rookie this year for the 49ers. He got hurt, but some guy pulled a one-of-one card of his in Mequon and I guess sold it for $12,000 right before the game that he got hurt in. So great timing. That card might sell for $5,000 now that he got hurt. You never know.
Which is still a lot of money for a piece of cardboard. But so that's what I was trying to say the other day when I thought you were going to come on Wednesday is how much of what's going on in the world impacts the cost or the value of these cards, because all of the value is just based on what people decide the value is, right? No one's setting the price for these things. It's only a market that decides it, right?
Yeah.
And so tell this John Morant story of that card.
The one that I got.
The one that it was nothing, and then because of yeah.
I mean, my biggest card I pulled was a John Morant Prism rookie card orange there's 49 made. So I sold it for $8,000. Now could be worth 12.
But isn't that the one where the guy was in the background?
Oh, that one.
That one. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that is a 2019 Chronicles card where a rapper, Young Dolph, who passed away from Memphis, was in the background of the cards. So these cards were going for thousands of dollars. It was a heavy hype moment, and it's calmed down since then. But yeah, you just got to hit stuff at the right time and sell stuff while you have it. I mean, that's a card that was probably a $25 card that's suddenly started selling for $1,000.
So do you have a LeBron card?
I have a couple of LeBron rookies.
So with him breaking the record this week, are we millionaires now?
No.
Oh.
He's a goat. You save that in a safety deposit box for future generations.
Oh, that's for our kids?
Yes.
Okay.
So, Mike, for that card that had the person in the background and went up from $25 to several $1,000s, isn't that the peak trade then? I mean, is the next sale going to be as successful as that was because the circumstances were so specific.
I mean, you're always going to hit a top market thing like a stock or anything. That's going to be the top benchmark, and it's obviously gone down since then. But you had the bunch of those cards. I think I sent up a bunch to get graded, and they came back, and I sold them immediately because market was hot.
So, as a person who is like, does your ability, your being like the general you, not just you, does one's ability to be good at the game of sports cards, investing, and when to sell and everything, is it inherently tied to your knowledge of the sport?
Yes, I think you got to stay up on what's going on across the league and everything else. It's just like you getting news articles to prep for a show for this. I'm looking at news stuff that's happening online, forums. There's a guy that
podcasts.
There's a guy that just jumped in from Cam Thomas. I think his name is from the Nets. Kevin Durant's gone. This guy's been scoring 40 points a game for like the last week because Kevin Durant's been out. He's a rookie. His cards are just through the roof right now. So a guy that was unknown last week, now his cards are suddenly selling for hundreds of dollars.
So a lot of it. So like, would you start investing in so what is your portfolio? Because I don't really know as far as the range. Obviously, I think the most cards you have are basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like mess around at all with baseball or hockey or soccer?
Depends.
Football?
I'll put some stuff into the safety deposit box. That's kind of my PC collection. That'll be a lot of the GOATs like LeBron and Steph Curry, Tiger Woods.
Do you have a Giannis card?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
A Giannis autograph card. I got 3 of his rookies. The best.
How much money are you holding out at me?
Probably a lot. It's in the post note.
Do you keep them in a self-decorated shoebox or something like you would have when you were a kid?
I don't keep like my high-end stuff. I keep at the bank to stay safe because you never know. I mean, we have a nice alarm system at home, but
it's very valuable.
You want to look at stuff too. So it's tough to find that transition between, hey, this card is $3,000 and should be in the bank, versus I would like to look at it every day too because it's just cool artwork. I mean, that's what a lot of these cards are, just artwork.
So there is sentimental value to them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, all the ones that my dad stole from me. Every time I see one online, I'm like, Dad, you stole this card from me when we were kids. Oh, it's now worth $12,000.
Because what did he do with it?
He got rid of it.
He just threw it out?
Yeah, he didn't
Bruce.
bother to ask his son if he wanted them first. Oh, son, do you want your card that I stole from you? Because it was too expensive back in the day. Thanks, Dad.
It's a good thing none of us hold on to things.
It's a good thing Bruce doesn't listen every single day and just heard that. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk more about sports cards, other hobbies, and also a story about National Pizza Day. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Talking like Gandalf. I just ordered some sick binoculars so I can bird watch and study these big old birds. Jealous? Jealous? Yeah, you're jealous. I like dreaming, singing, working on my posture, notebooks, planners, hugging my backpack. I like silence, karate, get away from my backpack. Everyone wants my art supplies that are inside my backpack. Yeah, you're wrong.
Never be embarrassed of your hobby. It's a part of you. I'm gonna rap now.
Got a tiny town full of figurines. I've been carving them since I was 15. It's called Emmaville, and I'm the queen. It's the cutest little town you've ever seen.
Fear you may be missing out? We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app. Enjoy listening live or catch up by finding the podcast at civicmedia.us or wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts.
This is Pat Greitlow from Up North News Radio. On the air, online, or on demand, make it a point to catch the first word on Wisconsin news, sports, and more weekday mornings from 6.
And Brian.
I'm really trying hard not to go insane from the mind screw that is this situation with the I was going to say the GAB, but now it's the WEC, which was audited by the LAB, and then it's now screwed up by the GOP. And we're all SOL. Good for us. Congratulations.
Look at all those acronyms. Yeah.
We're the winners.
Tune in for Dueling Tangents every weekday at 2.
Women get a lot of advice about self-care these days, but one of the most important self-care steps we can take is making sure we're financially secure later in life. For small steps you can take to save for retirement, visit WeSaySaveIt.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
My mother was very familiar with her neighborhood, but one day she stopped at the stop sign and she wasn't even really sure where she was at.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Sunny skies this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 29. Winds out of the northwest, 8 to 15 miles an hour. Clear skies and quiet again tonight. Lows dip down to about 16. Bright sunshine expected tomorrow. Daytime highs approaching 39. Dry with temperatures a bit above average Sunday and Monday.
Of course you realize we're speaking figuratively.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry. It is our last segment of the week before we are off for the weekend. Happy Friday. Thank you for listening to the show today, but we are still here to round out and finish the show with Swarm Events founder, former Milwaukee mayor candidate, and my husband, Michael Sampson, talking about his sports card event that is happening tomorrow at Gather in the Deers District from 12 to 5. So if you like sports cards, you should go check it out tomorrow. But I thought, first of all, your dad did let us know that he is listening and that he also what is kind of just
First off, I want to let listeners know that there will be Pokemon available as well. 12 to 5 at Gather tomorrow. So if you're a Pokemon fan, your kids are into it, bring them by. We'll have it all available. Quick dive into sports card history. So it started in the 1800s. That was a lot of tobacco cards back then. So tobacco companies were putting cards with their tobacco packs in terms of trying to get more people to buy cigarettes. So there's a lot of competition in that until about the 1920s when World War I started.
that was the 19-teens.
Yeah. So paper and production stuff's halted during that time. So it kind of killed the sports card industry or baseball card industry. That was the only sport that they were doing stuff for back then. And that didn't pick up till post World War I in about 1933. I think Goody cards came out. That was kind of the start of the candy wars, the bubblegum wars cards. So they had a quick run until World War II. Again, kind of halted production of all cards. And then the 1952 sparked it back up, 51, 52 era, 50s with that Mickey Mantle time. And since then, there's been some fights back and forth amongst companies. At one point, Topps had the exclusive rights to having cards with gum in it. So then Fleer and Dunross started putting, who were also bubblegum companies, started putting puzzles in their cards and other things. So it's come a long way over the years. The latest drama in the industry is that Fanatics, which is a big clothing company, sporting company, has bought Topps. They own the exclusive rights to that. And they also bought, in 2026, they'll have the rights to Major League Baseball, NBA, and NFL cards.
So is that considered a monopoly?
Maybe, yeah. But so
antitrust laws can get involved.
So Panini, who's making millions and millions of dollars right now, is losing their rights. So they can continue producing their cards. They just won't be able to put logos on the cards, team logos.
So when a card blows up, like a Topps card or any of these other cards, do the companies actually see any of that money, or do they only make their money off of the boxes they sell?
Yeah, they've printed them and moved on. So there's not like
okay. So they're just in the game of we print them, we sell the boxes, and we sell enough of those boxes to be a profitable business.
Yes.
And then it's everyone who is in the game of buying them and selling them that can make lots of money if they get the right one.
Buying, selling, breaking is a big thing. That's been a takeover of the industry. So you'll buy a box online and you'll break it for a group of people. So one breaker will break. I'll get the Packers as a team, so I get all the Packer cards that come out of that box. So it's a way to, instead of paying $500 for like a hobby box, you get the Packers for $30, and that's your investment into that box.
Go ahead, Jane.
Couldn't you slide into the baseball makers company as kind of an inside spy, Mike? And because I don't believe that all of those executives are not pulling a couple cards out of those packs. I find that really hard to believe.
I know. How do they track that to make sure they're not stealing things?
There's a lot of industry drama. There's a big breaking company called Backyard Breaks, and they pulled like some of the biggest cards. There was one card that was highly sought after, the LeBron James logo man that had a NBA patch of his jersey from the 3 teams that he's played on, and it sold for $2 or $3 million. But everyone was looking for it, and they pulled it. And then they pulled another big card like a month later, and everyone's like, "Oh, how are these guys getting all these good cards? Are the boxes marked?" I don't know.
What is how would you describe the type of person? Like, what kind of people are we going to see on Saturday?
I mean, it's a lot of guys,
Lot of
definitely in the industry, but it's nostalgia at this point. So a lot of people that like myself that grew up collecting, they have kids now. So you're bringing your kids and you're introducing them, to the market. Same thing that my father did with me and sisters eventually. But it's a way to bond with your parent or your child, and you get to open packs together. Bruce has already set some cash away from this weekend for me and him to rip some cards together. So.
Okay. Well, very fun. So anything else? Remind everyone one more time about the details for the event.
So it's called Milwaukee Card Show. It's happening at Gather. It's right inside the Deer District on the 2nd floor above Good City Brewing. It'll be from 12 to 5 o'clock tomorrow. Come down, rip some wax, buy some cards, check out some Pokemon cards as well, and just get back to having fun. Watch Kristen's beautiful, Kristen will be at the door to greet you.
It's got to be fun to watch the kids' faces too, Mike, I bet.
Yeah, I think Kristen's going to get to see that joy tomorrow because I'm leaving a bunch of free cards at the door that she'll get to give the kids when they walk in and stuff. So they get excited. That's what it's all about. That's the excitement in the hobby.
Well, I was excited last night when, in celebration of National Pizza Day, which was yesterday, Michael decided to go to 4 different Milwaukee pizza places and get a pizza from each of them. And for the 2 of us, he brought home 5 pizzas, including a deep dish, and we had a taste test. So you want to give a shout out to the different places that you picked them up from?
Yeah, so I think we determined last night. My favorite pizza in Milwaukee is Ned's Pizza. It's on 27th Street. The best story from last night was probably Pietro's in Bayview, which is probably number 2 on my list. Nice guy, sat down, told me about the history. He's been there for over 50 years. It's just, you walk in, it's like a folding table. You're waiting for your pizza. Like it's great. So we enjoyed some pizza last night.
We did enjoy some pizza last night. We did not finish it. So Jane, I almost brought you leftovers today. Are you a pizza fan?
I love pizza.
All right. Well,
there's 2 full pizzas left.
There's 2 full pizzas left. And so we're hoping that our brother-in-law will have an appetite when he comes to visit this weekend. But Michael Sampson, thank you so much for coming in the studio. I'm excited to help you at your card event tomorrow. And that will do it for us this week on As Goes Wisconsin. Stick around for Dueling Tangents and the Chad Holmes Show on WXCO. But for now, thank you for listening. Thank you for calling. Thank you for texting. This has been As Goes Wisconsin.
Sports team, swift defeat, the theory's backed up by